Chapter 176. Thanos with a headache, so he made a promise to the female bartender. He looked at her and said in a deep voice, "I will cut off his head with my own hands." The female bartender just stared at Bart blankly for a while, then smiled happily. "Thank you, come to me after you have judged that villain, and I will make you the best drink." Bart nodded with a smile, then turned and walked into the distance. Under the awed and terrified eyes of countless people, his burly figure slowly disappeared into the wind and snow, leaving behind the female bartender who stared at his back and silently blessed him. On a dim planet in a certain galaxy, Thanos' burly figure stood on the edge of a cliff, ignoring the successive dark jungles below and the terrifying roars. He looked up at the only dim light in the skyline. A ray of dawn in the dark. It is an unspeakable alien beauty. Thanos was expressionless. At this moment, suddenly, a holographic projection of a figure floated in front of him, with grey-white skin. It was his subordinate's grand prize, Ebony Throat. "Master, is there any news?" Smiley face. Thanos didn't even look at Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw still maintained his original respect and replied, "Master, now your bounty has spread throughout the universe, and this bounty is public, just to provide your information location." Thanos fell into silence. He knew what the other party meant. It can be said that at this time, he has lost his reputation in the universe, and even shakes the rule of his army. His army will be loyal to him. The most important thing is that he is invincible, and powerful. This is a position that has been consolidated over time through countless wars, but it was completely shaken by this one battle. But Thanos doesn't care about this, he cares more about the headache, those three guys who are chasing after him. Through the screen from Ebony Throat, he saw one of the shots, and that powerful strength was not something he could match. Thanos regretted it more and more now. He never thought that it was just a temptation, but it completely angered Asgard, not to mention, it also angered a more terrifying and powerful existence. Sending three people at random will be a strong man at the level of the Heavenly Father. You must know that he is still just a normal sub-Heavenly Father. For this reason, he has to constantly leap and jump wormholes, and travel between various galaxies, because he knows very well that once he stays in a certain galaxy for a long time and is noticed by the other party may be able to directly lock the space and let him. He didn't even have the chance to jump the wormhole, and he would surely die when the time came. It was just a guess at the time, but looking at it now, my guess has been confirmed. The opponent does have the ability to lock the galaxy. This kind of power completely made him a mouse and could only run away. If he had the infinite rough stone, he might still have the capital to resist. Now, he had to compete patiently with the opponent. Seeing that Thanos was silent, Ebony Throat did not speak either. Both of them are very clear about the current situation. No matter what he does, Thanos will either die or flee. Fortunately, it is not a dead end, at least for Thanos. The previous move just came in handy at this time. Thanos said to Ebony Maw, "What happened to Ronan?" "Master, that guy was very cautious and sent it to the earth, but there was no news after that. It should be that the person was detained." He hesitated. Ebony Throat immediately understood and answered quickly. The person was detained. Thanos was thoughtful, and then said in a low voice, "Someone send the news, tell Zeus what's going on here, and spend money to find those guys, and instigate them to fight these three people. Unite Zeus and the Marauders." Hearing Thanos' words, Ebony Throat's eyes lit up, showing a look of admiration. In this situation, the Master can still find a chance. It can be said that if the two parties unite, even the three Heavenly Fathers will be treated seriously, let alone Thanos. "Yes, Master, I will arrange it now." The picture dissipated, but Thanos was still standing there. His thoughts were constantly turning like a storm, and he was thinking. Think about the road ahead. Because of his wrong move, he is now facing a very embarrassing situation. He found that his plan had deviated significantly, and he was too anxious. In other words, he was too confident, not only failed to find the space on the earth, the time stone, but even caused him to lose his mind and power stone. Most importantly, all the gems fell into the hands of the unfathomable goddess. The probability that he wants to get it back is almost zero. Unless there is another layout. But no matter what, the immediate crisis must be resolved first. He can't be tired of running all the time, he has more important things to do. In the past, he could massacre aimlessly, but a new opponent has appeared, and this opponent is mysterious and powerful. He has to concentrate on solving this opponent first, but it cannot be denied that for countless years, Thanos were not surprised. Because of the appearance of that powerful goddess, waves began to appear. Excited? Is it anger? Or both? Thanos smiled lowly, "Let's see who can make it to the end." He didn't say the woman's name. The entire universe began to boil, and Thanos, who was known for his brutality, was hunted down. Although they didn't know the identity of the person who chased Thanos, it was clear that the three hunters had extremely powerful power. The power is so terrifying that Thanos can only leave the army and flee. Even issued a bounty. Anyone in the universe can accept this public reward, but the location of Thanos must be reported correctly. If this reward was offered before, no one would dare to accept it. Including those who have a deep feud with Thanos. But now it is completely different. In just one day, although the number of people who received the reward list cannot be revealed on the surface, in fact, the intermediaries have accurate data, which has reached an astonishing over 400 million people. Chapter 177. Found it's only one day. If it has been settled for a period of time and the news has been brewing for a few days, then the number of people will skyrocket at an alarming rate. It can be seen how many people want Thanos to die this time. How many people hate Thanos. In a galaxy 10 trillion light-years away from the solar system, a crisp and sweet female voice came from a luxurious sightseeing spaceship. "Wow, did that guy Bart do a good job?" Now Thanos is a street rat that everyone shouts and beats. Street rats. Raccoon Rocket, who was sitting on the sofa opposite Tina, had question marks all over his face. Although it is said that because of the universe translator, the language of the entire universe can be understood by oneself, but many local proverbs are still incomprehensible to many people. Just like this time. Although I don't know what kind of creature a mouse is, but the previous sentence everyone shouts and beats, and when connected, it is obvious that this creature is not a cute pet. The rest area of a sightseeing boat is no different from that luxurious manor on Earth. The 3-story high empty hall is equipped with a series of bar counters, kitchens, halls, and billiards. There are luxurious TVs with strong signals that can connect to the Earth and watch various TV dramas and movies on the Earth. Don't ask why there is a signal, the quantum communication in the universe can receive the signal even if it is far away. As long as the other party's signal channel can be obtained. So compared to Thanos who was running away in embarrassment, Tina, Bart, and Alfred were just a treat, and it was actually a trip in a sense. Perhaps the only difference is that the three of Tina will directly release their powerful perceptions every time they arrive at a galaxy, covering the entire galaxy in an instant, looking for traces of Thanos. Tina was wearing a fashionable t-shirt, grey sweatpants, and white socks, lying lazily on the sofa, chewing something similar to chewing gum in the universe, while watching the current classic variety show on TV boredly, sending out words from time to time. Sweet giggles. Grodd was also watching, seemingly very interested. Rocket is not interested in this kind of funny variety show at all. If he is interested in it, it may be science fiction, because he is very interested in many brain-hole technology weapons on the Earth and wants to create them. As for Gamera, she is training in an open place not far away. Her training method is very simple, that of the sanctuary. Tina forcibly created a gravity world in an empty area. Gamera's physique is far superior to that of humans. The planet she lives on has twice the gravity of the Earth. She can lift several tons of weight with ease. Between this, Tina's gravity is adjusted to the limit that Gamera can bear, 3 times. This triple is based on the gravity of Gamera's home planet, not Earth. So Gamera is very hard in this gravity mode, just playing a set of basic fighting skills slowly, and even the crackling of bones can be heard from time to time. Under gravity, it's not that the light only acts on the bones, but the whole body including the internal organs. Tina felt this pain deeply. But under this kind of extreme training, Gamera still forcibly came down, and Tina couldn't help but admire it, and at the same time expressed concern about the future of Star-Lord Quill. With such a strong lover with a very tough personality, I'm afraid Quill will not feel well in the future. Fortunately, there is still a huge power hidden in Quill's body that has not been tapped out. I believe that with Alfred's help, he should be able to suppress Gamera to some extent. Bar? Tina wasn't so sure. Forget it, anyway, even if she gets beaten, it's Quill herself, and it's none of her business. And just when I thought it was another leisurely day. Suddenly, a holographic projection appeared on the watch hanging on Rocket's wrist, and the information displayed on the projection made Rocket's eyes shine immediately. Tina, there is news. Whoosh! The figure of Tina, who was leisurely watching a TV series on the opposite side, came to Rocket in an instant. Looking at the holographic projection, a cold light flashed in her eyes. Give me the coordinates. The Rocket did not talk nonsense, and directly enlarged the coordinates displayed by the destination. Information and data of various galaxies in the universe immediately appeared in Tina's mind, and she found the corresponding galaxies without too much nonsense. I saw that Tina's eyes were rendered red. Boom! A red halo emerged and exploded, turning into red sparks all over the sky and dissipating. Her figure also disappeared in place. Looking at the data on the holographic projection, Rocket couldn't help but click his tongue. Ghost, this girl is really amazing, she can jump directly into wormholes. To find the wormhole jump in the universe, it is not any time and anywhere. Each coordinate will have a corresponding jump point. Only when you reach the jump point can you jump to the corresponding galaxy you want to go to. The rocket immediately began to operate on the holographic projection panel in front of it. Find the nearest jump point in this galaxy and start the engine immediately. At this time, Gamera, who was originally training, also left the gravity area with difficulty, walked in front of the rocket, looked at the holographic projection and asked urgently, have you found Thanos? That's right, Tina has already gone, and it's time for us to set off. Let's go, that place requires many jumps. If you don't want to vomit yourself when you jump next, then you need to stabilize your body. In a galaxy called X545. There is a planet with a more advanced civilization, and the style of the planet is somewhat similar to wasteland cyberpunk. In addition, the weather of the planet itself is in haze all year round, resulting in successive rainy seasons. Indiscriminate lighting, a colorful world, and towering buildings, anti-gravity aircraft and cars in the buildings are shuttling in an orderly manner. On the lowest street, it was raining heavily, and the lights on both sides of the road were yellowish. The crowd is holding umbrellas, surging towards the distance. At the end of the street, there is a huge empty arena. The arena covers a very large area, more than 100,000 meters. This is the most famous feature on this planet, the duel field. And this duel field is jointly named with Gaotianzun's duel field. The champions who compete here will go to Sokka for a supreme duel, and the gladiators will receive endless glory and cheers. Chapter 178. Debut on the duel arena. 2 burly alien gladiators, wearing armor and showing part of their muscles, holding axes and clubs, were fighting frantically. Every time the axe and the shield, the mace and the shield collide, the sound is like the fire mark of igniting explosives, which makes hundreds of thousands and millions of spectators in the duel field roar and scream with excitement. Kill him, Wolf howl, kill him, tear him apart. Kill him, God Eater. Come on, God Eater, chop off his head with your axe and tear his chest apart. The excited faces of the audience surged with blood, ignoring their usual normal state, excited, and the hormones in their bodies soared in a straight line, making them roar. At this time, they are like irrational beasts. They support each other and support the 773 gladiators themselves. They worship strength, blood, and money. The heart-piercing roar resounded through the sky, almost boiling the whole city. Smiley face, the noise and hustle and bustle make the surrounding noisy. But the people who came and went nearby were not surprised at all, and even roared because of the anger in their hearts. This is rendering of the atmosphere. No matter how calm and rational you are usually, as long as you are here, you will be unconsciously assimilated by the atmosphere here, and you will fall in love with this bloody, killing, and wild world. This world is completely separated from the seemingly peaceful world outside. And in the auditorium, unlike the screaming and excited crowd around, one of them was extremely tall, but because he was wearing a black windbreaker and hood to cover up his figure and appearance, it was impossible to see his identity clearly. But at this time quietly sat in his own position. He looked coldly at the two gladiators colliding like beasts in the duel arena. For him, this battle that made everyone excited, everything seemed so boring, as immature as a child playing house. I don't know how long it has passed, but the battle is still going on, the atmosphere of the entire duel field has reached its peak, and the sound of roaring and fighting has broken through another barrier again. Roar, maybe it was affected by the roar of hundreds of thousands of people, maybe it was because the fighting had reached a critical point, which made the two gladiators seem to have lost their minds. Bat, smashed shields, thrown away axes that have already been sharpened, and maces with broken spikes. They waved their fists madly at each other, their eyes were full of blood. In the end, the two people, covered in scars and bleeding blood, roared angrily, ran towards each other with their legs apart, raised their fists and smashed hard at each other's head. The fists are getting closer, when the two fists are only a few centimeters away from the opponent's head and cheek. At this time, the sign of the duel field was like a pattern, and it was fixed on this one. The faces of the hundreds of thousands of spectators in the auditorium were like beasts because of their excitement, their bloodthirsty eyes, and of course the person sitting quietly in his seat wearing a windbreaker and hood. He felt this situation, raised his head slightly, and revealed a face that the universe was looking for at this time. It was Thanos. There was a strange light in Thanos' eyes, and he murmured in a low voice, "It came so fast, such power is really surprising and unexpected. But, I can be Thanos, come on, let's see what happens this time." Time is like the hands of a clock, ticking continuously, but time is not lost. It seems that 10,000 years have passed, and it seems that only 1 second has passed. Finally, time began to slip away again. However, in the original fixed frame pattern 8, there is another person who should not exist. Boom, the huge noise sounded again, roars and screams intertwined into a wild symphony that resounded through the clouds. However, a louder sonic boom drowns out all the sound waves. Above the sky, a red ray of light descended from the sky like a meteorite, and every time it fell tens of meters, a terrifying sonic boom would explode, rolling and agitating in all directions, deafening, passing on to everyone's ears. The originally excited audience looked up subconsciously, their eyes were infected by the red light. Subconsciously, the original roar was like pressing the pause button, and it instantly became quiet. Just staring blankly at the red beam falling from the sky. In the end, he watched helplessly as the light beam fell straight on the duel field, in the middle of the two gladiators. Boom, the terrifying roar and vibration exploded in an instant, and huge smoke and dust were scattered in all directions. After the gladiators who were supposed to fight were instantly thrown tens of meters away by the huge impact, they hit the ground and slid another 10 meters before stopping. This terrifying movement made all the audience silent, staring blankly at the pervasive dust and smoke, only to see red currents intertwining and ringing in the dust and smoke. Although I couldn't see clearly what was going on inside, a wordless sense of oppression slowly permeated out. That kind of heavy oppression, like the Supreme Master looking down with indifferent eyes, made them feel a kind of fear involuntarily rising in their hearts. That kind of great fear made their bodies freeze stiff as if they had been blown by a cold wind. What's this? Such a thought flashed through everyone's mind. In the end, what happened? What was that sudden falling thing that made them involuntarily fear? Moreover, that terrible pressure cannot be produced by ordinary creatures or weapons. Just 5.0. Too clear, so clear that people with weak wills almost faint. Just when everyone was wondering and fearful, a pleasant and clear voice came from everyone's ears. "Ah, I almost hit someone on the stage. I'm really sorry, but if you don't stop it, you may die together, so you don't need to thank me." "Then, Tina, they seem to be gladiators. It is a great shame to them that you stopped them just now. They will fight you desperately. It's an ugly custom, it's a bad habit." Chapter 179. Scarlet Poisonous Needle. I am sorry. I don't really feel angry about it, shame is shame. The gladiator, who was lying on the ground in the distance, felt as if his body was going to be shattered. Hearing the conversation coming from the smoke, he couldn't help but slander inwardly. As a gladiator, it is indeed a shame for a gladiator to be interrupted by a bar in the middle of the battle. But even shame depends on the person. If it is an ordinary person, they will vent their anger without any scruples, and even if they pay their own lives, they must cleanse themselves. But from the way the opponent appeared on the stage, no matter how they look at them, they don't look like ordinary people. People with mysterious backgrounds are always the people who can't be offended. Because no one knows what means these people will have. After all, in the universe, there are many people who play with the soul. They are not afraid of death, but they are afraid of death, and even their souls cannot rest. Regardless of the inner activities of the two gladiators, the smoke and dust slowly dissipated, and the red lightning dissipated, revealing several figures. This is a very strange combination. 16, a slender red-haired girl in a red coat, jeans, and white sneakers, a dwarf raccoon with a backpack, a tree man, and a green-skinned woman. And this combination was none other than Tina and the others. When Thanos in the auditorium saw Gamera, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes, and then flashed complicated, and whispered, Gamera. Nearly a million people just watched Tina and the others who suddenly appeared on the duel field, completely unaware of what happened. But at this moment, densely packed aircraft suddenly flew over the duel arena. Countless guns appeared on the aircraft and were aimed at Tina and the others. Tina tilted her head, stretched out her beautiful hand, turned it over, and under the red light, she could clearly see the blood vessels and blood in her palm through her white skin. No matter who you are, give up resistance immediately, or kill immediately. On one of the aircraft, a person with 3 eyes yelled at Tina and the others below. The attitude is extremely tough. To be able to build such a large duel field on this planet, and even unite with Gao Tianzun's duel field, of course has a profound background, and its armed forces are also huge. Even the appearance of Tina and the others from the sky is indeed surprising. But it doesn't mean that they will be afraid. After all, once they show their timidity, their reputation will be ruined, and troubles will not be small in the future. Unfortunately, but Tina simply ignored them. The same is true for the rockets. Under the eyes of everyone, Tina took a few steps forward on her slender thighs, walked to the center step by step, looked in Thanos' direction, fiddled with her bright red nails, and said softly, "Can you? Such a simple appearance is obviously to attract us, so can you let me see what your confidence is?" Thanos. The voice resounded through the clouds, and the manager of the duel field was very angry at the initial words, but when Tina called out Thanos' name, he immediately withdrew his original command to launch an attack. And feel cold all over. As if being poured with a basin of cold water, he immediately looked in the direction Tina was looking at. When he saw the familiar and burly figure, he immediately staggered and almost fainted in the aircraft. Damn it, it's actually Thanos. The administrator looked so ugly that he wanted to cry. How could he not know about the major events that happened in the universe recently? He is also eating melons. He also hopes that Thanos will be killed quickly, but it doesn't mean that he likes Thanos to be killed in his own industry. You must know about a strong man of Thanos' level. Once the war starts, let alone his duel field, whether the planet is safe or not is another matter. The administrator was already debating whether to just give up and immediately get out of the way. After all, what Tina said just now contains a lot of information, and he is not an idiot, so how could he fail to hear the terrifying storm hidden inside? However, it is obvious that his hesitation is doomed, and his idea is about to fail. I saw Thanos in the auditorium stand up slowly, lifted the hood of the windbreaker, revealing the shape that made the universe famous and fearful, slowly floated up wearing armor, and finally floated on the duel field. NA is only about 10 meters away. Tina looked at Thanos in front of her, tilted her head, a little strange, what makes you so confident, so close to me? The corner of Thanos' mouth raised, and he didn't answer immediately, but looked at Gamera behind Tina, and said in a low voice, "My daughter just said a few words, don't interrupt with a terrifying roar." Boom! I saw that Tina was too lazy to listen to so much nonsense, the red light all over her body burned like a flame, and finally burst open, followed by Tina's whole body turned into red light, and rushed directly to SA North. At speeds beyond the speed of light, they rubbed in the air out of thin air to create terrifying air waves. The entire arena was also shaken. 773 in a blink of an eye, Tina was infiltrated by the red light, and she was already close at hand. Thanos seemed to have no reaction. Tina had already arrived in front of Thanos in an instant, leaning slightly, and raised her right hand, the index finger just tapped Thanos' chest armor lightly. Thanos was horrified. Although he had a plan and confidence, he didn't expect the other party to be uneasy at all. He didn't care about it and shot directly. What he didn't expect was that the opponent's speed was so terrifying that he didn't react at all. He thought that the safe zone where he could react within 10 meters was simply self-righteous. The invisible threat of death permeated her whole body. Tina tilted her head, and under the latter's stiff face, said softly, "No matter what your confidence is, it's a pity that you shouldn't just appear in front of me like this. Thanos, peeping at the crown and provoking war wantonly, I give you the death penalty in the name of the Scorpio Gold Saint." The undeniable female voice is full of majesty, the sky, thunder explodes. The rain that filled the sky froze at this moment. What followed was her cold voice. Scarlet Poison Needle. Chapter 180. Thanos' backhand, a brilliant pink halo bloomed from the fingertips and armor. The torrent of pink energy exploded, Tina's hair and coat swayed wildly in the airwaves, and the powerful energy penetrated Thanos' chest, and the huge impact made the latter unable to react in time like a cannonball usually shot backwards. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Thanos shot hundreds of meters backwards and smashed into the wall at the bottom of the auditorium on the edge. The huge impact force smashed the wall, and the sky was filled with gravel and dust. And Thanos was also overwhelmed by rubble. The sudden attack caught everyone in the room unaware. All the audience stared blankly at the scene. Some messengers in the auditorium were sweating coldly behind their backs. When they came here, they didn't expect to find Thanos, so they uploaded the information. They didn't expect the other party to be so fast, and they came to this place in almost no time. The most important thing is that the opponent's style can be said to be vigorous and resolute. They didn't give Thanos any chance at all, and shot directly. Smiley face. From this point, we can see how tough this mysterious arbiter, Saint Seiya, is. But then there was a look of joy. Apart from earning the reward, the biggest reason was that they happened to have a considerable hatred with Thanos. Their racial home was destroyed by Thanos himself. The almost doomsday-like scene when they were young, but they can't forget it until now. For them, it is an indelible nightmare. But now, they seem to be able to see the nightmare erased with their own eyes. Except for a few of them, the manager in the sky saw that his property was hurt, and he didn't dare to let a fart go. Bart destroyed a fleet with one punch on a neutral planet. After the analysis, almost everyone who has seen this video knows that 100 million light-speed punches were punched in that second, but each blow has the power to destroy the planet. He can't afford to offend such a strong man. Rocket didn't have so many scruples, he himself was a bear maniac. Seeing Tina's beautiful and crisp blow, knocking Thanos into the air, he immediately waved his fist fiercely, and roared happily. He said, "Wow, well done, a great home run. Groat." The tree man called softly from the side. The face is full of cuteness. As for Gamera, her expression was a bit complicated, but when the picture of her family members dying in despair appeared in her mind, she still stared at the cloud of dust and smoke in front of her with an indifferent face. Under the cloudy sky and the rainy night, the huge lampshades erected around the duel field illuminated everything in the duel field so brightly. And the picture of the drizzle constantly falling. Let everything become so harmonious. Patter. The sound of the rain gradually became louder. In a quiet atmosphere, Tina looked at the ruins in front of her, raised her eyebrows, and walked forward step by step with her long legs. Under everyone's surprised eyes, they saw that before Tina took a step, golden flames would ignite on her body, and pieces of armor slowly emerged from the flames. After just a few short steps, she had already put on a pair of armor. The sacred golden yellow exudes a dazzling halo, and each piece of armor fits Tina's body perfectly, appearing extremely harmonious. The cloak on the back fluttered with majesty. Tina didn't wear a hood, and her red hair made her look so dashing. This set of armor is extremely gorgeous and beautiful. Even if the aesthetics are different, the audience present will feel that this armor is extremely beautiful, as if it is a battle armor that can only be worn by a god's mansion. Not only that, but Tina, who had already put on the golden holy garment, exuded a wordless aura. Full of oppression and majesty, people can't help but want to surrender to it. Don't pretend to be Thanos, the first scarlet injection is painful enough for your physique, but it won't just make you lose your fighting power. Tina said indifferently. Boom! As soon as Tina's voice fell, the ruins in the distance exploded suddenly, and the smoke, dust, and gravel scattered all over the sky to block the sight. In the next second, I saw an extremely burly figure rushing out. The rebel in sight rushed to Tina in the blink of an eye. Mixed with a ferocious and terrifying aura, Thanos held up the double-headed broadsword that he did not know where he got it, and slashed Hwashin with a force. The whistling sound effect almost cut the air into two halves. Coupled with the incomparable power of Thanos, it is believed that once hit, even a large warship will be cut open. However, the opponent Thanos faced was Tina. I saw Tina staring coldly at the double-headed sword that was getting closer, and when the sword was less than half a meter away from her forehead, the sword suddenly stopped and stopped moving. Thanos' pupils shrank suddenly, and his eyes shifted downwards, and he saw the hand with the golden glove grasping the blade. This girl actually grabbed the double-headed sword with all her strength with her hands. You must know that this knife is made of the most precious metal materials he scavenged in the entire universe. Its sharpness is rare in the world. Any material is vulnerable to it. With his power, it will cut everything. But it was such a sharp knife that was caught just like that. Damn, what kind of monster is this holy fighter? A mere human being is so strong. I'm afraid this girl, Zhang Yos, is only in her teens. Thanos couldn't help cursing the donkey inwardly. How old has he lived, and now he is only a sub-celestial parent? You must know that he has the blood of an eternal titan, and his race has already determined a lot, and the girl in front of him can be said to be just a blood of an inferior race. At the age of 20, he already possessed such power. It's just unbelievable. It's no exaggeration to say it's a freak. Thanos found that even if he had his own plan, it might not be possible to make it to that time. Thanos could only silently hope that they would figure it out. Otherwise, he is really going to die here this time. Thanos' eyes became sharp again, throwing away all distracting thoughts. Chapter 181. The Scorpio who conquers the world no matter how downcast he is Thanos, one of the overlords of the universe. Let countless people hate and fear the existence. Just let him give up and admit defeat? Totally impossible. No matter how desperate, he will not give up. He tried his best to draw out the double-headed sword, but found that his strength could not shake Tina at all. The thin body of the human girl seemed to contain the power of the entire universe. Tina's eyes were full of teasing. Thanos ignored it, and felt that the power was completely inferior, so he directly chose to give up, staring at Tina with terrifying purple energy bursting out of his eyes. Next second, two terrifying beams of energy shot out from his eyes. It's amazingly fast. It completely engulfed Tina in front of her almost instantly. Boom! Terrible shocks resounded through the sky, the ground in front of her eyes was completely swept by dust, smoke, sand, and stones, and a powerful and huge impact swept all directions. The rocket not far behind Tina let out a strange cry, and her whole body was blown away by the shock of the terrifying air wave. In addition to him, there is Gamera. Fortunately, Groot 790, as a treant, immediately stretched out his hand, and immediately stretched two long wooden strips on his arm to wrap around Rocket and Gamera, so that the two did not hit the distant wall. Rocket and Gamera put their hands in front of them, resisting the terrifying air wave, and looked forward. Tina Rocket is a little worried. Although his character is very arrogant and his mouth is very poisonous, Rocket likes Tina very much. Of course it is not love, but friendship. He has a very good sense of Tina. Not only is Tina powerful, but she is also very pure in character. Tina never relents when it comes to murder and justice, but in normal life, she is like a curious little girl who doesn't understand anything. He never condescends because his strength is comparable to that of God's mansion. Instead, he likes to pull Groot and Rocket to talk about everything the two have experienced when traveling in the universe. As a transformed creature, Rocket is very sensitive in his heart. He is never willing to trust others, and he is full of defenses against anyone. The only people who can walk into his heart are Quill and the others. He usually talks to Quill, waiting for others to quarrel, but in fact, he has already regarded Quill and the others as his family. The knife-mouthed tofu heart is talking about him. It is precisely because of his personality that he never reveals anything, but when it comes to a crisis, he is more anxious than anyone else. Seeing that Tina seems to be at a disadvantage, Rocket can't wait to take out the magic gun that he and Tina have remodeled with great interest and give Thanos a slap in the face. But before he could pull out his big gun, Gamera stopped him with a wave. Rocket, Tina will be fine. Walter? What are you kidding? Rocket retorted subconsciously. After all, Thanos looked too fierce. With that kind of energy, Tina should be injured even if she was strong. However, the rockets have not yet finished. Amidst the smoke and dust, a bright golden halo exploded, and a golden boot pierced through layers of fog and bombarded Thanos' chest heavily. Boom! The terrifying force instantly kicked Thanos' breastplate almost to pieces, and Thanos spurted out blood. Under the eyes of disbelief, he turned into a cannonball again. Boom! 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 Thanos was kicked on the ground and slid hundreds of meters, smashing into the ruins again. A long ditch was also drawn on the ground of the duel field. Hungry? Okay, it seems that I was wrong. What you said was about Gamera, I was in a hurry. Seeing the dust and smoke cleared, revealing Tina who was intact, under Gamera's playful eyes, Rocket resolutely, admit it. He didn't want his anxious look just now to be caught by Gamera. If his embarrassment just now was known by the two idiots Quill and Drax, it might become their joke for the next year, and his own would lose the courage to fight back. Seeing Rocket, Gamera resolutely confessed, the corner of her mouth curled up, she smiled without saying a word. Very good, I have mastered a black material about the rockets, let's see how this guy scolds himself in the future. The rockets and Gamera are still fighting each other, but at this time, the off-court is shocked by the brief confrontation between Tina and Thanos. Everyone was in an uproar. Although they knew that Thanos fled because he was afraid of Tina and the other three saints, and that Thanos might not be his opponent, they never thought that it would be a situation where they were completely crushed. Even the human girl named Tina just counterattacked. 2 hits let everyone see how powerful Tina is, and Thanos will definitely not be an opponent. However, this kind of duel may not be as exciting as the previous 2 gladiators fighting, but it also detonated everyone. After all, the protagonist who was crushed was the big man in the universe, Thanos. To be able to see Thanos being crushed and beaten violently, some people never have such an opportunity in their lives. They are now experiencing it firsthand. The tickets are so worth it. Everyone discussed excitedly. It's just too scary, that human named Tina girl, she's just unbeatable, oh my god. Look at her, she is as beautiful as a goddess, with her exquisite and perfect facial features, figure, and armor, her strength is simply fascinating. If I have such a wife, even if I die, I will die. It's worth it. Is Thanos so weak? He didn't resist at all. What an idiot, Thanos is still the powerful Thanos, but his opponent is a real god, so it seems that he is so weak, don't make a mistake. That's right, you are still weak like an ant in front of Thanos, usually he doesn't even bother to look at you. No matter what, today's scene is perfect. But don't you think there is anything unusual? Thanos has escaped for so many days in a row, why was he discovered so easily today, and was tracked here by the adjudicator? How do I feel that Thanos has some conspiracy? Most of the people's excited discussions focused on Tina. Although she appeared for a short time, she still conquered everyone. Chapter 182. Scorpio's demeanor. The audience who can come to the duel field to watch the gladiators fight, there is a beast in everyone's heart. They are obsessed with blood, muscle, and fighting. Essentially they are obsessed with power and wildness. Tina's unrivaled strength, and her nearly crushing blow to one of the overlords of the universe, Thanos, has completely conquered their hearts and even their souls. If they could, at this moment they were even willing to die for Tina. Facing nearly a million pairs of obsessed and fanatical gazes, Tina raised her chin slightly, and scanned the circle with her beautiful eyes. After discovering this strange scene, she was not shy or disgusted, she just raised her face naturally. He raised his head and enjoyed it proudly. She is a born master. She should be standing there enjoying all the cheers and flowers and applause. Groot. Groot, the tree figure behind him, looked at Tina's back, stretched out his finger while pointing, and lowered his head to the rocket and called out. Yeah, she looks really beautiful. Rocket's furry ears moved. Gamera looked enviously. What she envied was not the other party's strength, but envy. Even though the other party was in darkness, he was still bathed in light. Tina's soul was as pure as a spring, clear. Gamera herself. Smiley face, she followed Thanos, she was cruelly trained, and even broke with her own sister for this reason, and she was injured and stained with countless innocent blood, just for Thanos' so-called philosophy. Her soul has long been infected by blood and innocent lives, and she is a member of the evil. In a sense, she is indeed a heinous person. The moment she appeared in the sanctuary, she was even affected by the sacredness of the sanctuary, and she couldn't help but knelt down on the ground and confessed everything she had done. For many years, she rarely fell asleep. Because she was afraid that in her dreams, she would dream that those innocent lives killed by her would turn into undead, and would ask her, why did she slaughter them? At this moment, Gamera saw Tina's back, and the only complex emotion she had towards Thanos was erased. Everything about her was brought by Thanos. The other party destroyed her life, transformed her into a killing machine, made her bear the reputation of Thanos, and became the notorious female killer in the universe. All she wants now is to see Thanos die in front of her. Repentance for his family, fellow countrymen, and those who were his children. As if sensing Gamera's gaze and thoughts, Tina turned her head slightly. In the eyes of no one paying attention, her eyes glanced back slightly, and the corners of her mouth curved slightly. She turned her head to look at Thanos again, and stretched out her index finger. Hundreds of pink energy particles continuously gather on the index finger. The colorful energies reflected each other, and finally shot out from her fingers. Boom! The pink beam of light sank into the ruins ahead, and the next second, a terrifying loud noise exploded, resounding through the clouds, and a terrifying energy mushroom cloud bloomed, completely submerging that area. In the raging energy, everything was turned into dust. The huge impact airwave impacted all directions, almost blowing away the audience in the nearby auditorium. Fortunately, they grasped the fixed objects beside them to fix their bodies, otherwise even if they were not blown away, they would still be in a state of embarrassment. Go up and roll. But even so, their bodies were constantly swaying in the turbulent air current. Damn it. Ha 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 ha, such a powerful force, so beautiful, I will be completely conquered by her, she is my king. Too powerful, this is the real strong, the real power. Not only did people not panic, on the contrary they completely ignored the turbulent air current that could blow them away, laughing wildly in the strong wind, cheering, shouting, and roaring. They are like loyal believers, shouting for the gods they believe in. Who is Thanos? He is no longer the overlord of the universe, he has lost the aura of a strong man, he is just a clown, a blasphemous clown who is about to be beheaded. The noisy roar echoed in my ears. Looking at those fanatical gazes, Tina laughed. She never thought that she would conquer the people here just by appearing, and it seemed that she was not bad. But, she doesn't care about these. She doesn't need so many believers. In contrast, she prefers to quickly deal with Thanos and go home to practice. Bang! The whistling sound came from the ear, and Thanos, who was supposed to be in the center of the energy explosion behind him, suddenly appeared at some point, and he was attacking with his most vicious means. The sound of howling wind passed by, and a streak of silver traced a perfect arc in the air. The sharp double-headed machete had already slashed towards Tina's slender neck, and Thanos wanted to cut off Tina's head with a single blow. However, at the moment when the machete was about to hit her neck, a finger blocked the edge of the blade. Forward. Ding! The crisp sound of metal crashing exploded. The sharp blade of the beheading knife hit the finger glove and sparks popped out. Not only that, but what Thanos didn't expect at all was that a corner of the knife's blade was cracked. Even as calm and cunning as Thanos, he couldn't help but speak. You must know that his broadsword is also an absolute top weapon in the universe. Not only is it unparalleled in sharpness, but it is also tough enough to keep it from being melted for a day even in the high temperature zone at the core of the star. Any heavy impact will not cause any damage to it. This time, just a collision caused a gap in the big knife. The armor worn by this human woman is strange. Thanos immediately realized this, the armor is definitely not just good looking and good defense, it must have other functions that he hadn't thought of. It's just that Tina doesn't care whether Thanos has realized the power of the golden cloth. She stretched out her index finger to block the blow of the big knife, and suddenly kicked out with a heavy whip leg. Thanos, who had already been soaked, immediately stretched out his arm to block in front of him, and kicked his golden boots on his armor. Chapter 183. God and God boom. Thanos blocked it but didn't completely block it. The huge power is still the threshold that Thanos cannot cross. His whole body shot backwards again sadly. But this time it was much better than the previous 2 times. After tumbling a few times in the air, it slid a certain distance on the ground before stopping. Thanos frowned and glanced at the big knife with a gap in his hand. The blade was full of cracks. It was obvious that the knife would shatter after an impact. So he simply inserted the knife directly into the ground. Twisting his neck, he looked at Tina and said in a deep voice in amazement, I didn't think of your armor at all. Even in the entire universe, it is definitely the rarest artifact. Thanos had extraordinary eyesight, and realized that the golden holy cloth was not only a piece of armor, but also a terrible weapon. Tina grabbed her body, tilted her head slightly, her eyes were full of indifference, and she didn't speak. Thanos faced the terrifying aura constantly spreading from Tina. The whole planet began to vibrate faintly under this aura, and the raging wolf aura even repelled the rain from the sky. He took a deep breath, dispelling the depression in his heart. I kept cursing that Zeus in my heart. He believed that the other party at this time must be hiding somewhere to spy here, just wanting to observe the uniqueness of the human girl in front of him before considering whether to make a move. Although he had guessed this a long time ago, Thanos had no choice but to pray. After letting out a breath, he said to Tina in a low voice, although I really don't want to admit it, but what I did this time was very stupid. I shouldn't offend the behind you. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the dual field immediately exploded. This is basically equivalent to begging for mercy and admitting defeat. The majestic and powerful Thanos would actually say something like that, and once it gets out, the prestige, strength, and majesty accumulated by Thanos for countless years will all dissipate. Wow, he actually conceded. This is a bit different from the legend. Rocket didn't expect that, he stroked his beard and looked surprised. Groot. That's the kind of person he is. Gamera looked up at Thanos and said softly. That's the kind of person. Rocket repeated. Gamera nodded, indeed, His Majesty, under the powerful aura, hides his original character. He is cruel and ruthless, but more of it is cunning. Just like now, facing the mighty Tina, I will not hesitate to give up everything, reputation, and face, if I can get Tina's understanding. He can even kneel. As long as he can achieve his goal. One word at a time, but the Rockets were frightened, asking themselves, such a person is simply terrifying, especially as an opponent, it is even more terrifying. Once you provoke such an opponent, if you don't kill him quickly, you may have nightmares even when you sleep. Who is Thanos? Commanding a huge army, he is the overlord of the universe, someone who is feared and admired by countless people. A person with such a status should have a very strong dignity. Generally speaking, when a soldier is about to die, he should die in a glorious and overlord manner, and die majestically and mightily. But Thanos is different. In order to achieve his goal and to live, he will give up all his aura and kneel down. Such an enemy is like a creature like a poisonous snake. Once he is let go, he will hide in a corner of the universe anytime, anywhere, waiting to retaliate in a more cruel way. Anyway, this kind of enemy is definitely the last thing the Rockets want to see. If offended, he had to simply use his magic gun to turn that person into ashes, and he had to collect the ashes and throw them into the underground of the star. Otherwise, he will definitely not feel at ease. Rocket shook his head and walked to Gamera's side, stretched out his hand and patted Gamera's thigh with a look of sympathy. Gamera was a little confused, but when she looked down and saw Rocket's expression, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. The conversation between the two will not be mentioned for the time being. Seeing Tina in the middle heard Thanos' words, she chuckled and shook her head, you are indeed a character, but unfortunately, evil is evil. Tell me, Thanos, with so much blood on your hands, what kind of feeling is it? Have you ever felt the slightest bit of guilt for what you did? Thanos fell into silence, and after a while, he said, I feel guilty all the time, but I gave them a chance, everything is fair. Opportunity? Fair. Tina laughed disdainfully, because of your strength, you dominate their fate. You are like a person holding a scale, deciding their fate with a superior attitude. What are you talking about so grandly? In fact, to put it bluntly, everything is not fair, and Tina has never doubled standards in life. She won't say what makes you decide the fate of others. Because she, and even the crowned Athena, is the same kind of person as Thanos, a strong man and a god. They have unparalleled power, so they can easily formulate rules in order. Facing a sinner, a wicked person, they can deprive him of his life and punish him without any scruples. The only difference is that Thanos is more vicious and he has no scruples. But Tina is different from Myangxia, they are indeed gods, they are high above, but at the same time they can fight with a group of people at the bottom. Otherwise, given Tina's current status, Rocket, Groot, 5.0 Gamera, and Quill, what qualifications do they have to talk to her in a peaceful tone? God can destroy the common people, but also bless the common people, can be superior, and can also show mercy and compassion. Thanos is different, he does not have these, his heart is cold, in order to achieve his goal, he can abandon everything that can be abandoned. Tina has a thorough understanding of this person, as well as the rules of this universe. So just saying this, no more nonsense, the strong decide the fate of the weak, such as now, at this moment. Why didn't she judge Thanos because of this? Chapter 184. Praying Mantis and Oriole. Thanos is not using words to test. In just a few words, Thanos has already understood Tina's character. She has no weaknesses. Any strong person will have one or even several flaws. Perhaps it is a defect in strength, but also a defect in character. Some people are powerful but have flawed personality. For Thanos, this kind of person is the best to deal with. He can use his invincible wisdom to make fools die without knowing what's going on. Cortina is different. She looks very young. Logically speaking, such a young and strong person must be full of conceit and pride. Hubris is a flaw in itself. Smiley face, Thanos can take advantage of this. However, the existence of Tina itself has greatly exceeded Thanos' expectations. It was hard to say a few words just now, but judging from Tina's conversation, the girl's spiritual defense is too strong. Simply it's not something he can shake. Strength and wisdom are unprecedentedly terrifying. Such a person made Thanos feel fear for the first time. What kind of strength is it that can cultivate such an almost perfect warrior, strength and will, and what kind of greatness he has glimpsed? Thanos is not afraid of death, because death has a different meaning to him. But what he is afraid of is another existence. What he fears is that the other party will never let him die, and his soul will be exiled forever. Tina's senses are very keen, she sensed the flash of fear in Thanos' eyes. Tina frowned slightly. Thanos is afraid of death? No, he was afraid of something else. This made Tina suddenly a little interested. Her understanding of Thanos basically came from Gamera. Gamera said a lot, but without exception, most of what she said was Thanos' cruelty and tyranny. Ruthless, indifferent. What is Thanos' weakness? Gamera has no idea. What, then, should frighten such a cruel and cunning being? Even higher than death. Tina was very straightforward. She didn't attack at this moment, but asked with interest, what are you afraid of? The top floor of a towering building outside the duel arena. A group of people are standing. Under the cover of night, bathed in the heavy rain falling from the sky, looking down at the duel field far below with piercing eyes. So, what are they saying? I can't hear it at all. A familiar and frivolous voice came, followed by a flashing spotlight, revealing a familiar face. It was Quill. What do you think he's afraid of, Alfred? On the side, the extremely burly Bart asked with great interest. Alfred, with his hands folded on his chest and a cold face, said coldly, it must not be death. Hey? No one is afraid of death. Quill exaggerated when he heard this. Perhaps for Quill, death is the most terrifying thing. A person like Thanos is not afraid of death. Loki's face was calm, but the iconic blood color of the frost giant's bloodline kept flashing from his eyes, and the cold and frosty aura emanating from his body was enough to prove that he very angry, can't wait to go down and chop off Thanos' head with his own hands. Indeed. Soul nodded. Although he hated Thanos, he had to admit that Thanos had a unique and extraordinary will. Quill and Drax looked at each other and shrugged. The former said, so, what are we waiting for? Shouldn't we be like Tina, appear on the stage in a handsome and domineering posture, and then use the coldest means to send that guy to repent? Before, Tina brought the Rockets and their domineering appearance on the stage, but he was very envious. Bart shook his head, we can't appear on stage for the time being. Why? Quill was puzzled. Didn't you realize that this time was too smooth? Loki glanced at Quill, and then explained. Under the latter's confused gaze, he shook his head helplessly. Before Thanos was hiding, he does not hesitate to ride his throne to shuttle across the stars to avoid being tracked. But why do you suddenly stop here now? Is it just to watch a duel? You mean, he did it on purpose? Quill immediately reacted, what kind of trap do you think he set up? We just have to wait, if we show up, we might scare the guys. Bart took out a few pieces of gum from his pocket and chewed them. In fact, he wanted to see if those people would show up. If they didn't show up, then Tina could judge Thanos by herself. If they showed up, it would prove that a war was about to start. An ambitious false for dominance, he is looking forward to it. Appear quickly, I really want to see how ugly your faces will be, and what kind of posture you will appear in. Bart raised his head slightly, and seemed to see a figure through the thick clouds. I'm afraid of the behind you. Tina didn't expect Thanos to say it bluntly. Tina raised her eyebrows. Looking at the girl's expression, Thanos said softly, what kind of greatness is it? It changed the fate of a girl who was originally doing nothing but died of mediocrity, and made her stronger, with both strength and wisdom. There are not many people who can do this. Isn't that something to be afraid of? Athena never needs fear, what she needs is order and peace. Tina suddenly realized, but then she said seriously, her gaze was like a sharp sword, but you are obviously the negative of all this, so you need to be eliminated. Thanos still wants to speak, but Tina is unwilling to continue talking nonsense, she has let the other side delay for a long time. A terrifying aura is soaring at a terrifying speed. Rumble thunder was raging above the sky, and terrifying electric lights shuttled through the clouds, overwhelming the darkness, and the night was illuminated by electric lights from time to time, but it was even more terrifying. Tina's voice echoed through the clouds. I'm already impatient with Thanos, in confession, let's end the curtain. Boom. Chapter 185. Full firepower at this moment, the Golden Saint CEO of the 7th Sense Scorpio completely showed his energy like a disaster. Without the reinforcement of the will of the gods, this planet is as fragile as a bubble. The eruption of Tina's power caused the planet to crumble, the sky tore apart, and the earth trembled. Once Tina's blow came out, the planet would shatter like a stone falling from a high altitude, and countless lives on the planet would end. Obviously, Thanos knew this, and he was shocked by the terrifying power of the girl before him. As if there is no upper limit. After the shock, he still kept his composure. He glanced at the hundreds of thousands of people in the auditorium who were struggling to breathe. He said in a low voice, once you and I go to war, people on this planet will die. In order to judge me, bring so many people to be buried with me, is that what you want to see? Thanos knew from the beginning that the 3 human warriors hunting him were terrible, so he came forward and why he chose to be on this planet. It's just to make Tina throw a mouse. The reason why the order side is always suppressed is that they have too many weaknesses. Thanos will not care about so many lives, but Tina will undoubtedly. Once a strong person has a weakness, it's too easy to target. Tina's eyes flashed red, and she said coldly, if this is what you rely on, then it's too stupid. Boom! When Tina said these words, Thanos already felt that something was wrong, but before he could react, he saw Tina's figure in front of him suddenly disappear in place, and the next second, severe pain came brain nerves, Thanos' chest was hit with terrible force. I saw SA North instantly turned into a shooting star that soared into the sky, piercing through the thick clouds. There was even a sonic boom. When flying into the sky, by the way, a lot of those aircraft floating in the sky were blown away. Amidst all kinds of screams and shouts, Tina also turned into a red light and followed closely behind. Under the fear and shock of everyone's eyes, she completely disappeared into the vast sky. It's unbelievable, that girl is so powerful. That's Thanos, I didn't expect that girl to be as weak as a baby in front of her. My god, from what Thanos said, the other two are probably as powerful as that girl. No matter what, it's fine if we don't start a war here. There was no fight. The aura that the girl showed almost caused the planet to be destroyed. I thought I was going to die just now. Yeah, Thanos, he actually took us all as hostages. Fortunately, he noticed this and changed the battlefield to another place. I really hope to see the scene of that girl beating Thanos violently. If you sell it, you will make a lot of money. Are you looking for death? A battle of this level is simply not for mortals to watch. Once you are accidentally involved in the aftermath, it will turn you into ashes in an instant. People stood up and raised their heads, discussing one after another. People were shocked by what happened just now, but they also saw that Tina sent Thanos away from the planet, and most people would be grateful for the girl's kindness. There are also many people who fear and admire the strength of girls. But no matter what, at this moment, people have remembered the girl's heroic appearance. This will be a memory they will never forget in their lifetime. As for Gamera and the rockets in the duel arena, they looked at each other in blank dismay. Why did you hit someone and still disappear? Groot, you're right, Groot, I think we should be thrown out. Groot. Ha, don't worry, I'm more worried about Thanos' fate than that girl, I don't think Thanos will be the girl's opponent. Rocket waved his hand, worried. He was not worried about Tina after such a long time together, he has a little understanding of the power of girls. I also have a preliminary understanding of the power level of the universe. With so many levels in the universe, Tina can be said to have reached the top of the Heavenly Father level. As long as there is no single universe level god, Tina will be fine. And in another casual conversation, Tina seems to have said that in her inherited memory, there is a trinity of warfare, and the combination of the three saints will explode with power far exceeding her own. It can even directly compete with the single universe class. So why should he worry? He just wants to join in the fun now. Rocket looked around for a while, and finally fixed his eyes on the administrator who had just landed from the flying chess from the air, and waved to him. Hey, kid. When the administrator heard Rocket's shout, he still had eyes. He looked left and right, and finally stretched out his index finger and pointed at himself uncertainly, me. That's right, it's you. Rocket was impatient. The administrator quickly jumped off the aircraft and walked up to the rocket with a respectful face, dear guests, what do you need? Originally, he didn't need to respect anyone. But obviously, the power displayed by Tina has completely convinced him, and he doesn't dare to be careless about that god's companion. Boy, we need a spaceship, I believe you should be able to help us. Rocket made his request carelessly. Gamera remained silent, letting Rocket act as a donkey. Facing Rocket's attitude, the administrator did not suspect that the other party was pretending to be a tiger, and immediately nodded respectfully, I will prepare now. After finishing speaking, he turned around and shouted loudly, Zhanyos, to his subordinates behind him. Rocket shrugged at Gamera, who gave him an appreciative look. At the same time, on the top floor of the building outside the duel field, Bart crossed his arms and looked up at the sky. His eyes flashed and he said, aren't you going to make a move just like that? Should I say calm and cautious or cowardly? They're supposed to be watching, I can already feel they're on the verge of making a move. Then what do we do now? Thor said in a deep voice. Wait for those guys to make a move. Bart's mouth curled up a little, if they make a move, then I have a reason to go to the City of Omniscience. Chapter 186. Desperate Thanos boom. 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 In the starry sky, a figure like a cannonball unscrupulously blasted in space, no matter whether it was a planet or meteorite that was blocked along the way, all of them were smashed through. After flying for an unknown number of kilometers, it finally landed on a barren planet. Boom! Falling like a meteorite, a huge crater was smashed into the smooth surface that spread thousands of miles, and the dense cracks spread wantonly. Thanos was lying in the center of the big crater, the armor on his chest was already broken, and he could even visibly a pit was seen. Fortunately, between breathing, the pit will automatically recover. And Thanos also opened his eyes suddenly, as if the injury he suffered just now didn't exist at all. Just the moment he opened his eyes, he saw the terrifying red and gold intersecting light beams falling from the sky rapidly. Without any hesitation, Thanos' figure was blurred. In the next second, a huge roar burst out. Boom! The sky filled with smoke, dust, and gravel stirred all directions. The whole planet trembled, and even under this huge force, the planet deviated from the gravitational trajectory and drifted away to the distance. Along the way, he bumped into meteorites of all sizes, causing the back of the planet to be constantly attacked. 790 But the two of them, Thanos, didn't care anymore. He floated in midair with a sullen face, looking at the looming golden figure in the dust and smoke. Damn, such power! Thanos felt more and more that the situation had reached a critical point that belonged to him, and he was facing a strong man who could punch hundreds of millions of light-speed punches in a second. Powerful? At least Thanos himself is completely unable to compete. Even being crushed. If there is no change, then there is only one ending for him, one dead end. The only hope left is his left behind. I just don't know if he can bet right. Call the wind whisked past, blowing away the dust and smoke from the sky, revealing the figure of Tina in the golden holy garment. Her tall figure was like a blooming flame. She raised her head slightly and looked at Thanos. It's interesting, your abilities seem to be more than I imagined. There are many abilities, and they are all practical. You are indeed a pragmatist. Kfei, but facing you, it has no effect at all. Thanos said in a low voice. In countless years, his mind has stored too much knowledge and wisdom, not only technology, but also ability. This is the precipitation brought by the years, but for Tina, these precipitations and foundations are floating like castles in the air. Tina can break it with a single blow. That's why he said these slightly dejected words. Tina smiled coldly, and didn't speak, but the aura on her body began to surge, and the momentum was like a mountain torrent, the sky collapsed and the earth sank, and the tremors of the planet became bigger and bigger. The surrounding space also becomes more viscous. It is obviously because the momentum is too full, resulting in the continuous compression of the space, at least on Thanos. In this space, it is like being carried an extremely heavy mountain anytime and anywhere. Thanos' heart sank even more. He knew that if he went on like this, he might be lucky if he could survive for a minute. Take a deep breath. Wisps of blue smoke escaped from Thanos' throat and the corners of his mouth, and streaks of light appeared on his purple skin. With more and more lines, Thanos' momentum began to soar. The exponential growth made his body feel as if a volcano had been ignited, tyrannical. I'm going to do my best. Tina narrowed her eyes slightly. In that state, the energy in Thanos' body poured out uncontrollably. Obviously, the energy is constantly increasing, and the speed of this increase has already reached the limit of the opponent's physical fitness, that is to say, the next time the opponent will go crazy. Just as Tina thought. Just when his body strength erupted to a critical point, Thanos roared angrily. Roar! The terrifying sound waves turned into ripples visible to the naked eye and raged in all directions, even roaring the aura spreading from Tina. Losing the suppression of aura, Thanos seemed to be burning with purple flames, and with the gorgeous purple flames exploding opened, the air wave exploded, and the purple figure turned into a beam of light and rushed towards Tina. Raising your hand is a punch. In an instant, the sky exploded like a raging torrent, and the sound of explosions resounded in all directions, showing its terrifying power. However, the corners of Tina's mouth curved slightly. Without dodging, he just stood there, clenched his fists and blasted out without showing any weakness. In an instant, two big and small fists collided. Boom! The terrifying power of the two people collided, centering on the two fists, a huge shock wave burst out, and the time seemed to be frozen at this moment, and the delayed time passed, followed by the shaking of the hands of the clock, and lasted for 3 seconds. In the end, the deposited force completely destroyed the entire planet. The destructive power turned the entire planet into ashes. Not only that, the raging power U-bow also impacted in all directions. The rippling airwaves destroyed all planets and meteorites along the way with a destructive force. It even almost affected the planet at the beginning. Fortunately, Joe's own technology is advanced enough to detect the crisis at the moment the source of power erupts, and automatically activates the defense function. Only then did the planet not be affected. But even so, it still made the planet vibrate constantly. It can be seen that the aftermath is terrible. The rocket and Gamera almost crashed the plane just after taking off in the spaceship. During the shaking of the plane, Gamera raised his head and looked out of the window through the window. The ripples visible to the naked eye made her almost suffocate. She quickly yelled, "Rocket, I feel like we might be finished if we go out." Yet. I think so too. Even if the rocket is unscrupulous, I don't think this spaceship can survive that level of fluctuation. In his estimation, it is estimated that only mothership-level warships can go out. Everything else is delivery. Although I really wanted to watch the battle, but my strength didn't allow it, the rocket could only fly the spaceship downward, but at this moment, the rocket suddenly missed something. Chapter 187. Trial. Under the dark night sky, people in the city were extremely panicked, screaming in terror. Bart, who was standing on the roof of the building, saw this. His eyes touched a ray of gold, and the boundless small universe swept across the entire planet in an instant, quieting the vibrating planet. At this time, the rainwater was hitting the rooftop not far away, splashing drops of water from the starting point, combined with the feasting cyberpunk-style city below. It had a unique charm. Bart raised his head lightly, and saw a not-so-big spaceship come down, floating at an even distance from the sky platform, with the skylight slightly raised and open to block the rain from the sky. Rocket and Gamera stood on the pilot, say hello to Bart and the others. Afterwards, the rocket was full of regret. It's a pity that I can't watch the scene of Thanos being beaten up close. I think you want to record it and sell it. Quill interrupted abruptly, but Rocket instantly became angry, as if he had been told off his mind, and was about to yell, but just when he was about to put Quill when they sprayed it into a small fish, he didn't know what he thought of. Rocket's original anger was suppressed immediately, and instead he said with a look of reason, since Thanos is being tried, of course the picture of the trial must be shown to the whole universe, so that those who are deeply persecuted by Thanos people are judged with their own eyes. Of course they only need to pay a little money. These are reasonable and well-founded words, and Quill didn't know what to say. He was speechless and could only stick out his thumb. It's really amazing, you're right. Seeing Quill's appearance, Rocket was even more proud. I was right when I came here. Then he regretted, it's a pity that the battle between Tina and Thanos caused a lot of shock waves, which can be felt here. If you get closer, I'm afraid it will be turned into ashes. You really shouldn't go. Soul shook his head. What kind of ability should Thanos use to temporarily increase his strength? And now Thanos is already a heavenly father. Two powerful heavenly fathers. No material can survive the shock wave caused by super-level battles. The gods of the heavenly father fight, which has not been seen many times in the universe for billions of years. Because one heavenly father level has the power to easily blow up the planet, and two heavenly father level battles will cause a progressive impact of power. So it is extremely possible that the entire galaxy will be destroyed. Logically speaking, running is the first choice, rather than choosing to move over. Saul was quite surprised by Rocket's bold appearance, but he didn't dislike such a person, so he mentioned it a bit. It will be over soon. Alfred said coldly while looking up at the sky. It's over soon? Quill asked in surprise, didn't it mean that Thanos is now a heavenly father? Why is it over so soon? Bart explained from the side, although Thanos used that ability very special, allowing him to reach the heavenly father, but after all, it was only achieved by force. His infinitely growing power will continue to stimulate the limits of his body. Thanos' body, the intensity is very high. If you face an ordinary Heavenly Father, you may fight a little longer, and you may even win. But he's facing Tina. Alfred finished his words, and the corner of his mouth twitched with disdain. Although Tina is also a Heavenly Father, she is a saint, and a saint controls power, speed, crushing Thanos in all directions. Even in terms of fighting skills, she also gained experience in a very short time. Otherwise, Thanos would not have lost quickly, but would have already lost as I spoke. It was only then that everyone in Quill suddenly realized, but then they were full of emotion. After all, leaving aside the power displayed by Tina and the others, the speed of learning is enough to make people feel incredible. It's just a monster. Of course, they dare not say this, even Drax. Boom. 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 At this time, there was a roar, and the huge fluctuation even affected the sky, blowing away a lot of the dark clouds that were originally made up. Is the fight so intense? Rocket clicked his tongue. It just looks intense. Alfred shook his head, and suddenly said at this moment, it's over. As soon as these words came out, Gamera and the others were a little dazed, and before everyone could recover, they saw a bright meteor falling from the sky above the sky, directly falling on the dueling field. Boom! It hit the center of the duel field, and the ground shook immediately. Those spectators who hadn't left and stood up stood here. Under the shock, he stumbled and sat back down. The dust and smoke scattered all over the sky, but everyone just raised their heads and stared blankly at the midair. The girl in the noble gold armor was floating, looking down. She glanced around, raised her white jade hand and gently hooked it. Smiley face, seeing that the cameras covering the entire venue were being controlled one after another, they turned to Tina involuntarily. Zero facing the pieces of camera equipment, Tina didn't have the slightest emotion. At this time, the figure of Thanos below slowly floated up from the dust and smoke, but when people noticed the figure of Thanos, their eyes widened involuntarily. Thanos, the original overlord of the previous generation, was covered in scars at this time, the exquisite armor was broken, purple blood flowed down from all parts of the body, and his whole body was in the shape of a cross, just like the posture of God being crucified on the cross same. He opened his arms weakly and lowered his head, as if he was about to lose his voice. Blood slid down the skin and dripped to the ground. The whole audience was silent, shocked by the picture in front of them. Although everyone had thought of it a long time ago, they were still so shocked when they actually saw this picture. Thanos was unable to open his hands, blood was flowing all over his body, and was covered with scars. Above him was the peerless goddess in golden armor floating. Her red hair fluttered in the wind like fire. This kind of cruel scene seems so sacred at this moment. Trial Thanos, what a feat, almost no one would have thought that such a day would happen to the cruel Thanos. But so happy. King Khan's resonant female voice is full of majesty, passing on to everyone's ears. Chapter 188. Pain became the only companion. Thanos, the Titan family, has slaughtered countless races for countless years, stained his hands with blood, provoked wars recklessly, spied on the gods, deprived his six senses, fell into darkness forever, and endured endless loneliness for a million years. The sound of the proverbs was terrified, resounding through the planet, and let countless people see the scene outside the vast universe through those camera equipment. Trial Thanos. What a breaking point this is, the people behind the scenes have already connected the networks of all planets in the universe through signals. In an instant, it attracted hundreds of millions of views. No matter what kind of planet it is, no matter which power it is, no matter whether it has any hatred with Thanos or not, almost everyone watches it intently through the internet and live broadcast. That Thanos who is as weak as a gossamer. For that tragic situation, 790 not only did not win people's sympathy, on the contrary, it only had pleasure. Slaughtering countless races and lives, anyone who has a little bottom line will only want Thanos to die in a more cruel way, exiled for millions of years, and enjoy only loneliness and darkness. Thanos, but it will only make people feel that it is not enough. It's not enough to punish Thanos in a more brutal way throughout the universe. In the universe, many people who were originally persecuted by Thanos and had to wander the universe were shouted and watched by their friends and companions. Whether they are male or female, old or young, at this moment, they are already. She was full of tears, and her eyes were full of unforgettable hatred and pleasure. Of course, it is also full of gratitude to Tina. They wandered around, hiding their hatred in their hearts. For countless years, they all hoped to avenge their families and their compatriots, but they dared not. Because the enemy is Thanos, an enemy they simply cannot muster the courage to face. His strength, his figure is like a mountain that can never be overcome, engraved into the shadow that cannot be erased by the soul. Just like that, when they are doing nothing, living with boundless blood feud, thinking that they will never be able to see their enemy die, at this moment, the great hope brought to them is like a dazzling light blooming in the darkness. Those dim eyes, the people who watched this scene in various ways, have become bright at this moment. Especially when I saw that peerless, majestic red-haired Valkyrie in golden armor. There was an overwhelming sense of gratitude in all of them, from the heart, from the soul. And Tina, who is far away, seems to have sensed something, the kind of energy that comes from the boundless depths of the universe. Although it is subtle and small, it is as vast as the ocean. Her beautiful eyes moved, but she didn't make a sound. She stretched out her index finger, and her bright red nails bloomed a dazzling red halo in the focus of countless people's eyes. In the next second, brilliant meteor-like rays of light bloomed, star clusters shined, surrounded by thin red threads like needles, and rushed towards the remaining acupuncture points on Thanos' body as if they had life. Whenever an acupuncture point was pricked by the red filament, Thanos would cry out in pain. His face was distorted to the extreme. With Thanos' will, he can't help but howl in pain, which shows how tortured it is. With only a little bit of consciousness left, Thanos suffered a terrible pain that he had never experienced before at this time. This kind of pain is an incremental pain, a pain that penetrates deep into the bone marrow, and penetrates into the soul. At this moment, Thanos found that his steel-like will was useless under such pain. The only thought is to hope that he will die as soon as possible. Maybe death is the release. But Thanos knew that death was just an extravagant wish, because the other party would let him go into exile, and make him suffer this inhuman torture and pain every minute and every second. Darkness, loneliness, and pain will accompany him for a million years. Ho in despair, in the midst of terrible pain, Thanos' distorted face was like a nightmare. He whispered, "Balance is the true meaning of the universe. Sooner or later you will understand this. Sooner or later one day you will know that what you think of as justice is just." However, before he finished speaking, vast and boundless energy burst out from his body. I saw the endless starry sky above Tina's head, shining with the supreme wool of Scorpio, and the majesty and solemnity burst out with unparalleled power. A dazzling beam of light fell from the sky, completely engulfing Thanos' figure and his voice. Terrifying light particles continued to gather, and finally the shining light slowly dimmed in the eyes of countless people, and Thanos had already disappeared in this beam of light. Dimensions that are not known at all. In that dimension, there is no life, no wind, no nature, no light, just general chaos and darkness. Thanos will bear a million years of loneliness and a million years of torture there, and after a million years, if he is still alive, there will be an even more terrible trial waiting for him. It was a trial without hope. And the end of all this made the people watching the scene silent for a while. They stared blankly at the scene. At this moment, they couldn't believe that Thanos actually got the punishment and trial that he deserved. I don't know how long it has passed. Finally, many people who survived Thanos' persecution and massacre had tears in the corners of their eyes. Those were the tears of joy when revenge was avenged. Crying and drinking became their outlet. People who knew them did not despise 5.0, because many people know that today Thanos was judged, how many people's hearts have been liberated, and how many people will come out of the haze. After Thanos was judged, Tina's figure disappeared, and no one knew where she went. But it was this brief appearance that left the universe with endless thoughts. Who is she? What kind of power does she come from? She and her other two companions are so powerful, how terrible is the behind her? Some of the information that is only revealed is just to let them know that they are called saints, and the place where they exist is called the sanctuary, and they come from an unknown place. Chapter 189. Godhead broken in another unknown starry sky. The densely packed fleets that cover the sky and the sun are floating quietly. There are so many that people can't help but shiver when they see them. Several large battleships, and even a mothership-level battleship, were surrounded by tens of thousands of warships and spaceships of different sizes, like soldiers guarding their king. And in the brightly lit huge command room of the mothership, a burly figure in grey leather armor stood silently in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the vast starry sky in the distance. His eyes flashed with thought, and he didn't know what he was thinking. At this time, several figures behind him came over. One of them was even bigger and muscular, and said in a deep voice, "Boss, are we really not going? What are you going to do?" As the leader, the boss asked back without looking back, "Are you going to die?" The voice was low and thick, and a slight tremor could be heard in it. It seems that his mood at this time is not quite right. Everyone fell into silence when they heard the boss's words, and then the other person 16's eyes flickered, and he sighed, "Fortunately, we didn't rush to make a move. Thanos promises just a poisonous apple to us. Once we eat it, we will die without a burial place." His words seemed to have opened up a conversation box, causing several people present to speak one after another. Thanos has sinister intentions. He tried to use us as a shield, so he can leave. This is indeed the notorious Thanos, a treacherous guy. Once we make a move, it won't be too easy for the opponent to kill us. Hearing everyone's lingering fears, the boss turned around, showing a slightly wrinkled face, but full of majesty, and said in a deep voice, "That lunatic probably thinks that we may be able to defeat those three saints by joining forces. But obviously, he underestimated the girl. Just that girl can kill us all, we won't accompany him to die. His character is also strong enough, but as the leader of a party, he is not bad in both judging the situation and wisdom, so he naturally understands the danger in this. Although the other party destroyed several fleets of the Predator, which caused the reputation of the Predator to be ruined, it was better than letting the entire Predator go to death. He would not do such a stupid thing, not to mention, after what happened today, everyone in the entire universe knowing how terrible the Saints are, although their Predators didn't do anything. It will make many people in the universe laugh, but they will naturally understand. It's not just him, the leaders of other factions also have a tacit understanding, without any action. Nobody can be an idiot. Recklessness also divides people and tasks. Obviously, the Saint Seiya is not something they can offend at all, and when they do meet, they can still ask the other party to forgive them in the lowest posture. Indeed, if you really make a move, I'm afraid. One of the subordinates had lingering fear on his face. Judging from the frightened look on his face, he obviously imagined another ending. So are others. However, if we do this, we are afraid of Ebony Maw. What kind of Ebony Maw, what kind of Obsidian 5 generals, are a bunch of trash. Although there is an army under him, we Predators are not easy to mess with, shouted a belligerent fellow. However, his clamor did not make other people pay attention to it. A bald and vicious man rolled his eyes, "Damn bastard, why don't you go and kill Ebony Maw's gang by yourself?" The man who choked on these words was speechless, but he still insisted, "I'm alone, I'm afraid of them. Who doesn't know that I am the toughest fighter among the marauders?" "Ah, yes, what you said is correct." The companions responded perfunctorily. But the ferocious man shook his head after teasing and warned, "Boss, we can't be careless, those guys are a bunch of lunatics just like Thanos, although they don't want to admit it, but the army under Ebony Throat's command didn't suffer much, a complete huge army, our entire Predators may not necessarily be able to win the war together. This huge army is the painstaking effort of Thanos. Thanos possesses unfathomable wisdom, and the technology he has mastered allows him to apply it all to the army, whether it is cutting-edge weapons, spaceships, individual combat capabilities, or interstellar warfare. Everything in the civilized universe. And none of his troops are afraid of death. They are all lunatics who are not afraid of death. Once the war really starts, the alliance of all the factions of the entire Predator, although it is not certain, is actually a sure thing to lose. Now, they violated the original agreement with Ebony Throat. Thanos was tried under the eyes of the whole universe and exiled in another unknown dimension world. Ebony Throat will not say whether he will find a way to rescue Thanos, revenge on the Saints, but at least the Marauders will most likely usher in Ebon Maw's wrath. This point is indeed tricky, and even the rest of the people look dignified. However, the boss waved his hand, with a nonchalant expression on his face. Believe me, those lunatics are more willing to think about how to save Thanos than us. Also, with Thanos being tried, it's uncertain whether the brutal and tyrannical army under his 790 will submit to the Ebony Maw. What kind of person is Thanos? He is an overlord, a person who does whatever means for the purpose, so his will is always the most concentrated. He does not need other thoughts. This practice has also continued to the army under his command. He is a very strong, majestic people. He is impressed by the 5 generals of Obsidian, which can be said to be charisma and strength. But the army is pure power. With his supreme and powerful strength, he was worshipped by those almost inhuman lunatics, and he fought desperately for Thanos. Thanos is in the hearts of the lunatic army, the supreme god. An irresistible god. However, this god is judged and discarded by people today in the coldest, almost humiliating way. His majesty in the hearts of that group of madmen was broken. What would be the result? Of course, it will fall into chaos, and then there will be backlash. What they worship is strength, an invincible king full of cruelty and blood, and Thanos whose godhood has been broken, so it is naturally not worth them to follow. Chapter 190. The cruel reality: the crown was shattered, and the figure on the throne naturally did not have the qualifications to become the king. This is the harsh reality. Smiley face. This is also the biggest disadvantage of Thanos' rule of the army in this way. When his divine crown is still there, the combat effectiveness of the army of madmen ranks at the top of the universe. Once something happens, these army of madmen will completely disintegrate. Backlash. It might even turn around and swarm Thanos to pieces. Thanos is like this, let alone those guys from Ebony Throat, they can't deal with that army at all. He could only leave dimly with only a small number of remnants. And in this period, there are quite a few people who want their lives, and the leader who has figured this out has no scruples. If you want to trouble him, you have to be able to survive and talk. And the guys at Ebony Maw have to hope that the predators won't make trouble. After all, the technology left by Thanos is coveted even by the big forces, and they are said to be space pirates who make a living by robbery. Hearing what the boss said, the subordinates suddenly realized. It really is the boss, so it is like this. If you say that, then we have nothing to do. Without Thanos, the guys at Ebony Maw would be a bunch of trash. That's right, but boss, since that's the case, shouldn't we? One of his subordinates immediately thought carefully, and stared at the group of Ebony Throat, or legacy property. When the rest of the people heard this, their eyes immediately lit up, and their greedy desires had already risen. The boss rubbed his chin. Yes, but first discuss it with those guys. We are not the only ones who are targeting, there must be more people. We have to join them to bite down a piece of meat together. Boss, there's no need for that, let's go find Ebony Maw now, and kill them. One of the men was a little reluctant. After all, such a piece of meat can only eat a small piece for no reason, who can bear the gap? However, the boss didn't take it seriously. Although he was reluctant to part with it, the most important thing for him to be the boss was to know how to choose. He said in a deep voice, in this case, if you eat alone, you will end up with a dead end. The eyes facing Ebony Throat, not just one or two, but countless. There are still many big forces. Our looters faction alone is not enough to compete with those big forces. Only by uniting can we take a peace. Otherwise, we won't even have soup. The boss scolded, and everyone calmed down a little. The boss ignored the grumbling and reluctant subordinates. He stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the vast starry sky, with a strange light in his eyes. Ebony Throat, Thanos, it's not that we don't want to help you this time, it's that the so-called gods don't want to help you. You know, Ebony Maw and Thanos' whole cards have never been them. Except for them, those people contacted the so-called gods' residence in the City of Omniscience. They should be Thanos' backhands. And he, and even the entire Predator are just picking up cheap. If the gods don't make a move, how can the Predators compete with a who can destroy the planet at will? Ebony Maw and Thanos miscalculated one thing from beginning to end. That is, they never impress the gods. Time and age, ease and peace are the greatest weapons of a warrior of corruption. God is no exception. When they saw the birth of a new and powerful god's mansion, and the existence of an unknown and mysterious goddess, those cowardly guys would only shrink back and tremble in the corner. The boss lit a cigarette and exhaled disdainfully. What gods are they? Just a bunch of cowardly babies. What is so cowardly? In the starry sky, in the extremely luxurious golden tourist record 7=2 spaceship, Quill leaned on the sofa with a big record number N34 expressing his point of view carelessly. Beside him are Rocket and Gamera. Drax and Groot are putting on a snacking contest. Bart and Tina were sitting on the sofa, drinking coffee leisurely, and Alfred was standing not far away with his arms folded, wondering what he was thinking. The two Thor brothers sat opposite Quill, and they didn't care about Quill's insulting words. Guys, a lesson. After all, his words are too general. Fortunately, the enemy Thanos was tried, and Loki was in a good mood at this time, so he decided to forgive that mouth generously. He randomly took out a few snacks from the pile of snacks on the table in front of him, opened the plastic packaging, threw the snacks into his mouth, chewed and listened silently. Bart, are you thinking wrong? Soul looked at Bart, who shook his head. No, those people have sent a person to Earth to inquire about His Majesty's news, obviously to consider whether to start a war. Bart scratched his face boredly. What does this have to do with Thanos? Soul was puzzled. This in itself is a signal. Thanos knows this, and he will suddenly show up. He must have contacted Zeus, and even reached an agreement to help. Loki was a little helpless in his brother's mind, but he still spoke out to explain, I don't know why, Zeus didn't make a move, which led to a chain reaction, and the predators naturally wouldn't make a move. So there's something that Thanos seemed confident and stupid before. So that's the case. Zhang Yusal nodded clearly, and then frowned again, full of doubts, then why didn't Zeus make a move? I don't know. Tina picked up a bunch of grapes and put them in her mouth. After eating, she spit out the grape seeds and shook her head. There are many possibilities, who knows what the old guy who has lived for countless years is thinking. The thinking speed of a saint fighter is even more terrifying than that of a supercomputer. Naturally, he thought of many possibilities in an instant. However, after all, he had no direct contact with Zeus and others, and there was no evidence to confirm which possibility it was. What's more, why think so much? If you really dare to provoke him, then you can directly break into the city of omniscience and ask Zeus face to face. Although His Majesty fell into a deep sleep and is recovering, the Pope has a very tough character. Chapter 191. Hercules. The questions of Tina and the others were asked in a low voice to his father on the throne in front of him by an extremely burly and muscular man in the palace of the city of omniscience, who was wearing leather and showed a muscular chest. Prior to this, Thanos sent people to come to the door, hoping that they would send the god's mansion and army to destroy the 3 people who were following Thanos. The origin of the identities of the 3, Zeus and him knew very well what it was. The guard soldier suspected of being under Athena's command was extremely powerful. His father seemed to be very afraid of the guy with the name of Athena, considering that this time should be an opportunity to investigate the other party. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, his father broke his promise and allowed Thanos to be tried by the other party. Although he doesn't like Thanos' actions, even hate and disgust, he also doesn't like breaking promises. Sitting on the throne, Zeus, who was originally funny and fat, frowned at this time. His eyes were full of depths, like an endless deep sea bed. Hercules, my son. Zeus spoke slowly, staring at his son, and said softly, people like Thanos 790 are never enough to be believed. A cruel and cunning man, if you believe him, you will undoubtedly kill yourself. Besides, we are gods, the supreme gods. He is just a despicable bastard, and such a person does not need those so-called promises. Zeus' words made Hercules frown involuntarily, but he still nodded. What his father said was unreasonable. When Zeus agreed to Thanos, he clearly expressed his opposition. If he really wanted to test it, he would fight those 3 powerful young gods for no reason. Even if he died in battle, he would no complaints or regrets. He is Hercules, the son of Zeus, and a brave warrior. And Thanos itself disgusted him enough. Even this time, his father broke his promise, and he was just a little uncomfortable. Compared with Thanos, he admired those young gods very much. In order to judge Thanos, he crossed countless messages and spent countless hours trying to judge him, just to let him atone for those innocent dead souls. He has a very good sense of it. Father God, now we. Before Hercules could finish speaking, Zeus closed his eyes and murmured, this style of behavior, order, justice, innocence, or self-confidence. After whispering, he fell into silence, as if thinking. Hercules didn't fight either disturbed Zeus' thoughts. For a moment, the whole palace became very quiet, and I don't know how long it had passed. Zeus finally opened his eyes and said, Heracles, your best warrior, go, with my will, to touch them bar. Hercules didn't talk nonsense, at this moment he couldn't suppress the monstrous fighting spirit in his heart. Turned around and left the palace. Zeus was left alone, as well as the group of armored but silent golden guards. I can't even call your name, who are you? Zeus murmured suspiciously as he looked up through the glass ceiling above and saw the blue sky. Athena is an existence that cannot be erased in his long memory. His best daughter fell in that catastrophe, but now, he has achieved the title of the king of the gods and has a supreme status. He originally thought that it would become a permanent memory, maybe in an unknown number of years. In the end, it will be buried with this memory. But he heard the name again. What made him feel the most ridiculous was that he couldn't even call out the name completely at this moment. What an irony. It was precisely because of this, that Zeus realized at this time that this existence with the same name as his daughter was fundamentally far superior to him in strength. It may be at the monomer level, or it may be stronger. Thanos, that idiot, wanted him to make a move to deal with such an existence. Zeus would not be that stupid. He likes his current status, likes his current peaceful life, and spends it in feasting, luxury and lust. By the way, show his own strength. But definitely not to show it to someone who he can't provoke at all. Fortunately, from the perspective of the other party's behavior, although his attitude is tough, at least it is not like the god slayer who has that sword. Alas, Zeus only felt that he had a very headache now, and he couldn't beat him. If he didn't fight, he wouldn't give an explanation, which would destabilize his authority. It seemed like a best of both worlds solution. On the beach, Kyle was wearing a cool beach short-sleeved t-shirt and shorts, lying on a deck chair, enjoying the beautiful sea breeze and sunshine. The main body is sleeping and accumulating small universes, and I am enjoying life. It is really beautiful to have the best of both worlds. On the belly, there was also a fat orange cat lying on its belly, yawning in a drowsy and sleepy manner, and its fluffy tail flicked from time to time, making it look extra lazy. An easy life will destroy a person's fighting spirit, but wisdom will only accumulate. It is indeed very smart. Through the contact with gold coins, Kyle already knew what happened in the universe, and she was well aware of the practices and ideas of Zeus and his gang. Thanos thought really well. It is also very clear. Because of his own name, the rule of Zeus began to shake, which was absolutely intolerable according to the thinking of the superior. And the best way is to eliminate this restless factor with thunder's means. Thanos just handed over another knife. According to Thanos' thinking, Zeus has no reason to refuse. There are many powerful gods in the city of omniscience, and there are also many heavenly father-level existences. With the addition of Thanos and the predators, it should be more than enough to destroy Tina and the 3 of them. No matter how bad it is, they can transfer the conflict to both parties and escape safely. Unfortunately, he misread Zeus and underestimated Zeus. At this time, Zeus is no longer the who dared to fight against the gods to control the thunder. He has lost his fighting spirit. Smiley face, unless it is a critical moment, he will definitely not start the war without authorization. Especially a mysterious and powerful divine mansion. So Thanos was doomed to fail from the start. Chapter 192. Little land shark Kyle didn't take Thanos' matter very seriously. In a sense, the fate trajectory of Thanos in this universe has changed, and in her eyes the weak ones are no different from ants. To pay attention to Thanos, it is better to let her taste the food from all over the world. The main thing that caught her attention was the death behind Thanos. However, as the of creation, death holds the authority of death in the true sense, and her realm is not so high. The biggest reason why she arbitrarily tried Thanos regardless of death is that death doesn't care whether Thanos is dead or alive. Even in the future, death falls in love with the guy who loves to spiel and wear red tights. Death will not interfere with the normal operation of the universe, that is to say, for death, she doesn't bother to pay attention to the death of people in batches. After all, something can be seen from her name. Death is a conceptual existence. She and Athena are basically at the same level, but maybe weaker. But not too bad. So Kyle will not be afraid of death. However, she was quite curious about what the other party looked like. After all, it seemed that in the legend, death was the most attractive and beautiful existence in the universe. Meow. Just when Kyle was in a daze, suddenly a soft cry sounded in his ear. Kyle stretched out his hand and moved the sunglasses up to look over, and saw the big orange cat lying on its stomach for some reason and seemed to turn its head to look at it. To the sea. Kyle glanced over and raised his eyebrows. The clear sea surface was calm and there was a wave of waves, and on the sea surface, I saw a fish fin slowly approaching, but it didn't look that big. Shark? The problem is, close to the beach, this depth is not enough to support the shark's body to swim. Is it a baby shark? However, when Kyle uses perception to perceive, the look immediately became interesting. She slowly sat up from the beach chair, hugged the orange cat and watched with great interest the fins that were circling against the beach sponge. The other party seemed to be deliberating, carefully considering whether to log on to the beach. I don't know how long I thought about it. Finally, a small head carefully broke through the sea and looked around as if looking at something. This is a small shark head, but unlike a shark, its black jewel-like eyes are full of agility, liveliness, and caution. Pretty cute overall. When the little shark's head swept across the beach, its body froze, and it instinctively wanted to retreat to the water surface. However, for some reason, when it saw the beautiful two-legged eyes, it seemed to feel a little bit of closeness, and its instinctive consciousness seemed to be tell it that the two-leg won't hurt itself. The little guy is a juvenile shark. In the perilous sea, it can only hunt those small fish, and it has to be cautious about those big ones. So it can also be considered that there is an ups and downs. Today, it has been hungry for several days. As a land shark, it is different from ordinary sharks in that it has limbs, hands, and feet, and can catch some crabs on land. As a result, I ran into a two-legged beast unexpectedly, and a creature I had never seen before. It hesitated, considering its already hungry stomach. The little shark cautiously swam towards the beach, crawled slowly onto the beach, shook its body, and tiptoed slowly towards a crab with its teeth and claws not far from the beach at a speed slowed down 10 times. Every move the movements are full of silly and cute feelings, and Kyle is quite interesting to watch. The little guy and the big crab are a battle of wits and courage. The big crab opened its teeth and waved its claws, but the little guy was very brave. Without any fear at all, he rushed forward bravely, and then got his nose pinched. Oh, the little guy in pain uttered a scream. This scream was considered earth-shattering, and the frightened orange cat couldn't help but blow its hair, but then saw Alyosha shaking its small head, trying to shake off the big crab that was pinching its nose quickly, making orange cat the cat tilted its head, with question marks on its face. Kyle snapped his fingers with a smile. Though with a crisp snap of the fingers, an invisible force brushed past, causing the big crab to involuntarily let go of its claws. The land shark did not continue to go crazy, but with tears in its eyes, it resentfully used 2 claws like dog's paws. He patted the big crab on the head. It decided that it must eat this guy with its nose pinched into its stomach. Just when it was thinking about what posture to use to concoct this guy, its nose moved suddenly, and it suddenly smelled a tangy fragrance. This fragrance has never been smelled since its birth, as if it was discovered in an unknown area of exploration. The little land shark suddenly turned its head to look, and its black jewel-like eyeballs were about to stare straight. At some point, a large wooden table appeared in front of the two-legged beast not far away, and there were many plates placed on the wooden table. 0 in the plate is full of food that has never been seen before. The scent that makes it so celestial is coming from the food. Especially seeing the two-legged beast and the fat big cat gnawing on the food, the meat quality and the chewing sensation are simply down to earth, making the eyes of the already hungry little land shark turn red. A wisp of saliva could not help but flow down from the corner of his mouth. The little land shark was out of control, and left a row of footprints on the sand with his limbs, and walked towards the wooden table. Step by step, without knowing it, I have already fallen into the trap. That was hell under a pair of evil eyes. The little land shark appeared to be slow, but in fact it walked in a hurry. It walked to the wooden table, jumped up and jumped onto the stool that had been prepared, and put its 2 forelimbs on the edge of the wooden table. Looking at the two-legged beast opposite with longing and pitiful eyes. It is a very polite land shark, although very hungry, but it does not intend to snatch. What's more, its only thought is to wish for plums to quench its thirst. However, what it didn't expect was that the two-legged beast, which was enjoying the food it had never seen before, actually opened its mouth and sent an invitation to enjoy it together. These words were like the voice of heaven, making the little Alyosha completely surrender and sink into a table of delicacies. Thank you for your support, thank you. 3, End. Chapter 193. Listening to the voice of all things. Have you been wandering in the sea since birth? The golden sands, the waves are still there. The little land shark, who had already eaten and drank enough, was held in Kyle's arms as if he couldn't eat at all. The orange cat Gugu squatted aside and licked its fluffy little paws. Woo. Woo. The little land shark was very human, as if he could understand human speech, bared his little white teeth and barked twice. As a god, Kyle can easily understand the meaning of the little land shark. In a sense, if Kyle wants to, with her spiritual power, everything in the world can communicate. Even more so with a psychic creature. This little guy is very intelligent, completely comparable to the mind of a 10-year-old human child. Of course, his personality is also very similar, naughty, active, lively, and so on. It is worth mentioning that Kyle saw something different in this little guy's body. This little guy's life level is quite high. There is also considerable potential in the body, and once the potential is tapped out, it will definitely not be weaker than the current Thor Rocky. Of course Kyle doesn't care. But this little thing is obviously dependent on her. Relying on her intimately, she kept making noises. Obviously, every meal before had completely conquered the little guy's heart. Kyle helplessly stretched out his white and beautiful index finger and tapped the little guy's forehead, but the latter didn't care at all, and grinned foolishly. The little thing is very smart, it has its own set of judgments in the face of strange creatures, and Kyle is obviously very friendly to it, as if it is not a threat by nature. That kind of affinity makes it very friendly to Kyle. Favorability is basically friendly at first glance. Otherwise, with its prudence, it would not have landed on the beach at all. After eating a delicious meal, the favorability will be completely full. That's why it lay in Kyle's arms without any scruples, revealing its soft belly. Kyle also knows this. She also likes this cute little land shark, so she also plans to adopt this little guy. I don't see much thinking. It gave the little guy an unremarkable name. Jeff. This was the name of the actor in a comedy movie that Kyle watched the day before, and this was the first name that Kyle wanted to name. So, your name will be Jeff from now on, understand? Wu. The little thing knew that he had his own name, he seemed very happy, and even wanted to dance happily, but he ate too much, which made his stomach bulge and he couldn't stand up at all. Kyle also laughed when he saw it. Finally, Kyle held the little guy in his arms, stood up and walked towards the depths of the island. After the orange cat scratched its ears with its little paws, it quickly followed. There is a specially constructed road between the beach and the inner island. The road is paved with cobblestones, on both sides are jungle trees with natural scenery, there are various birds, animals pass through, and you can meet fierce beasts from time to time, but when you see Kyle and the orange cat, not only did they not show vigilance and attack, on the contrary, they are still very close, and they will come over from time to time for a rub. This is the affinity for all things that Kyle carries. She possesses the divinity of Athena, and is naturally close to all things in nature. The little land shark Jeff in his arms looked around curiously. After all, he has lived in the sea since he was a child, and he seldom sees this kind of scenery since he rarely lands on islands. The jungle, naturally, is nothing like the sea. But Jeff doesn't hate this kind of natural scenery, on the contrary he likes it very much. I don't know how long I walked, passed through the jungle, and came to the city of the sanctuary. The city is very huge. The originally empty city has already begun to be populated. Most of the people are children recruited from all over the world, as well as relatives of the children, some of the recruited teachers, chefs, and so on. The number of people has grown to nearly 10,000 people. Although compared to the vast city, it still seems so rare, but at least it is a good start. People live on the ground, and supplies are transported by specially provided freighters. As for things like money, it shouldn't be too simple for a god. What's more, as long as she wants, there are countries all over the world rushing to send it. And floating in the sky are the zodiac palaces and temples, duel fields, training grounds, etc. It seems to be miraculous, but fortunately, after this period of life, the people here are already used to it, but the children are still very excited. They know very well that as long as they study hard, they may become great saints, to protect the goddess Athena. These kids are so hot inside. But for now, you still have to study hard. Where there are people, everything will get used to, even in a strange place, most people live in an area of the city, which is lively and convenient. Walking on the street, there are already crowds in the wide areas on both sides of the street. But it seems that Kyle has not been seen. The little land shark Jeff turned the little shark's head to look around curiously, especially when he noticed all kinds of food, desserts, etc. in the street shops. His eyes lit up a little, and he was almost drooling. Fortunately, the stomach is still full, otherwise it would have to rush up to show off its cuteness in exchange for food. Kyle didn't talk too much nonsense, but walked slowly, walked a few streets, and came to a very huge school. Smiley face. The school covers a very large area, including elementary school, middle school, high school, and no university for the time being. More than 30 teaching buildings. It is enough for nearly 10,000 children to learn. One by one, they walked through the school, observed it, and nodded in satisfaction when they saw those children who were studying hard. 5.0 These children are different from the children she personally selected. These children have no inherited memory, so it is naturally impossible to forcefully have 10 years of growth in memory and build a mature set of cognition. Bart and the others can grow so fast, apart from inheritance, they have matured their minds in the past 10 years. These children also need to go through this kind of time, so they can be built through learning and settle. Unlike ordinary children, they will grow up very quickly. The main reason is that they will also experience brutal training, and these training experiences will become nutrients for their growth. Once these stages are completed, Kyle itself is equivalent to having a powerful army of saints with 10,000 people, and even more in the future. Chapter 194. The Greatly Changing Little Spider. New York. Ben's apartment on Queens Road. Aunt May is fully clothed cleaning the house. Uncle Ben was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper, and the voice of the anchor of the news network came from the opposite TV. Most of them are talking about some state congressman canvassing votes, the right reprimanding the leftist virgin, and so on. A ray of sunlight comes in from the window, illuminating the interior, and with the decoration of furniture, it looks full of warm feeling. At this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from outside the door, which attracted the attention of Ben and Aunt May. I thought it was an old friend from the neighbor who came to the door, but when they saw that familiar yet unfamiliar figure appearing, the old couple immediately froze. Just staring at each other for a second or two, Uncle Ben showed a surprised smile, and Aunt May put down the cleaning tool in her hand, walked quickly to the door, and exclaimed, "I am here, Peter. You are back." Aunt May, Uncle Ben. It was Peter who came. Seeing Uncle Ben and Aunt May who had raised him since they were young, he happily hugged the old couple. "Boy, look at how much you've changed over time, it's unbelievable." Aunt May raised her head slightly, held Peter's face carefully, and continued to praise him. In Aunt May's eyes, the current Peter is very different from the Peter she has always known before. The biggest change is the difference in body shape besides temperament. The first is temperament. The original Peter always had a feeling of depression. Although Aunt May thought he was introverted, now Peter looks very energetic and sunny, like the sun hanging in the sky. At least the first impression is enough to make anyone like it. Talking about the body shape has changed the most, not to mention being a few centimeters taller than before, and the body has also become wider. The arms exposed from the short sleeves on the body are full of muscles, and the streamlined lines are very beautiful. This is exactly the fitness version of Peter. The change in body shape has boosted his spirit. It's only been so long, and how big the change is. This made Aunt May hardly believe her eyes. Uncle Ben was also very surprised. It seems that during your internship at Osborne, you have a lot of reports, Peter. Uncle Ben was very pleased. Regardless of the results of the internship in Osborne, at least the external performance has allowed him to see progress, which is enough. Peter smiled with his school bag on his back. He wouldn't tell Aunt May and Uncle Ben what he had experienced during this time. If school wasn't about to start, he would have to practice in the sanctuary for a while longer. Fortunately, this year is the last school year, and when he graduates, he will have a lot of time to practice thoroughly. Today, Peter's family looked very warm. Peter also ushered in a moment of relaxation after that long period of intense practice. It went on for 3 days. However, in the past 3 days, he basically didn't relax enough to understand the stars, and he was just a step away from awakening the small universe. Finally ushered in the start of school. Queens Road Midtown Schools. The densely packed students walked towards the school, and Peter was among them. He was wearing a black sweater, carrying a school bag and stepping up the stairs step by step. He met many classmates along the way, and he greeted them cheerfully. Hey, Jess. Hey, Danioff. Hey, Peter, wow, I haven't seen you for a while, you look a little strange, so handsome. Peter's cheerful appearance surprised the students, and what surprised them even more was Peter's change, that completely transformed spirit, and that tall and straight figure, which made Peter attracted many people the moment he appeared. The eyes of few people. At this time, the students discovered that Peter, who was an ordinary nerd, suddenly turned into a handsome guy. It immediately attracted the attention of many female students. Among them, of course, is Peter's neighbor, Mary Jane. Mary Jane is a very beautiful woman with a slender and mature body. She was accidentally attracted by Peter's back just as she got off the car of her boyfriend, Lightning Thompson, a member of the football team. From her bottom-up perspective, she was just able to see the profile of Peter greeting his classmates. That smooth face, as well as the sunny and cheerful temperament, instantly made Mary Jane's beautiful eyes sparkle. Only at this time did she realize that the big boy she had neglected had become a little unfamiliar to her. At this time, Thompson, who had parked the car, came over, with Mary Jane's shoulders exposed, followed the eyes of his girlfriend, found Peter, and said unexpectedly, "That's Peter? He looks a little changed. Have nerds turned basketball stars too?" As a member of the football team, Thompson has a burly body and a good family. He has developed a habit of bullying the weak since he was a child. Peter is naturally one of them. At this time, he found that Peter had changed, which made Thompson, who is used to being in the spotlight, immediately sarcasm. The more he thought about it, the more he felt uncomfortable, so he simply walked over with Mary Jane's shoulders exposed, and said hello loudly. "Whoa whoa whoa whoa, let's see who this is." Peter, the nerd we always thought he was, has turned into a star. "Tell me, Peter, which hospital did you have plastic surgery in? I want to see it too. It was so successful." Thompson's exaggerated voice immediately attracted the attention of all the students who had just stepped into the school. It is human nature to eat melons, and the students who like to watch the excitement immediately stopped and gathered around jokingly. The protagonist Peter, who was called, stopped, and slowly turned around and looked over. When he noticed Mary Jane, who was exposed by Thompson, his eyes moved. The goddess he had a crush on before, he would be shy and shrink back, but now, his mood has already changed. With a much more mature mind, the secret love in adolescence no longer makes him weak, and he becomes calm in the face of this relationship. He looked at Lightning Thompson, who had a sarcastic smile on his face. His expression didn't change much. In his eyes, Thompson now is no different from a guy who has never been annoying. He directly said, "You're all doing so is repulsive, Thompson. There is only the last year left, and I want to spend it quietly. I don't want to wait until I leave the campus, leaving only these bad memories." Chapter 195. Lightning Thompson. This is beautifully said and very open. At least because of these words, the students who were watching couldn't help but feel empathy, and they felt disgusted with Lightning Thompson. After all, everyone knows what Thompson has done in school for so many years. It's just that no one wants to provoke it. It's just that at the beginning of the school year, coupled with what Peter said, the students' dislike of Thompson has directly risen a few notches. They felt that what Peter said was right. Who would want to recall campus life after graduation, but only think of the memory of being bullied by Thompson? Feeling those disgusted eyes, Thompson's face turned ugly. He never thought that that ordinary nerd would dare to resist him, and even persuaded his classmates. He was an asshole. Thompson looked at Peter fiercely, and met those eyes. That gaze, which was not purely offensive, was clear and bright, but it was like a sharp knife piercing Thompson's heart. The guilt that rose up in him made Thompson extremely ashamed. Peter, the whispers of the classmates, as well as Peter's calm and clear eyes, broke the strings in Thompson's heart. He let go of Mary Jane's shoulders with a roar, and rushed towards Peter like an angry bull. Peter just watched Thompson rushing quietly. Amidst the screams of Mary Jane and other students, Thompson swung his fist and punched Peter in the cheek without any force. If it was an ordinary person, with Thompson's physique in the football team, he would definitely punch. He was knocked out and vomited blood, and even suffered a concussion. However, Peter is no longer the thin and introverted nerd. He is Spider-Man and a backup saint. Thompson's physical fitness is strong, and it is impossible to surpass him. Under everyone's surprised eyes, facing Thompson's menacing punch, Peter did not dodge, but stretched out a hand, and precisely grabbed Thompson's wrist. The latter's fist just stopped in front of Peter's cheek and could not move. You not to mention other students, even Thompson himself was greatly surprised. He just made a move, but he didn't have the energy to stay at all. Peter, who had been bullied by him, was able to catch him in one fell swoop. How could this be possible? Thompson, who didn't quite believe it, continued to try to withdraw his hand, but at this moment Peter's hand was like an iron clamp, clamping his wrist tightly, making it impossible to move. The whole picture became weird. This pause made all the students discover one thing by accident, that is, Peter, who was originally thin in their hearts, has become so strong at this time, and Thompson has a large enough physique, close to 1.9 meters tall. Peter is not that tall though. But his body has been hung with flesh. Although he is a little thinner than Thompson in size, he is also strong enough. And when Peter grabbed Thompson's arm, he could clearly see the streamlined and beautiful muscles, which were more beautiful than Thompson's. Whoa, that's Peter. Great gift shit, Peter actually grabbed the fist of that bad guy Thompson, it's unbelievable, what the did he do? Fuck, Peter, what did you do during your vacation? Did you get pulled into some weird genetic experiment? It's incredible Peter, please tell me how you did it, how you managed to transform from a baby to a macho in a short holiday. Peter, let's go on a date. There were strange screams one after another, and the students around couldn't help holding their heads, looking incredible, and the girls suddenly discovered that Peter also had a very unique charm, which made them couldn't help but feel a wave of turmoil, even you also has a bold girl who expresses her love directly. As Peter's neighbor, Mary Jane's eyes shone with a strange light. For some reason, at this moment, Thompson, who she always thought was a real man, looked like a clown who hadn't grown up, while Peter seemed more mature. Mary Jane is a love brain, also because of the family environment. She lacked the warmth of home and a sense of security since she was a child. She fell in love with Thompson because he could bring her a sense of security, but now, she found that the boy she had neglected, Peter, was more mature and able to bring her more security. Peter didn't know what Mary Jane was thinking. Smiley face, if he knew, he would be very happy. After all, it was the girl he had a crush on. But now, he was facing an angry Thompson. Facing Thompson who was like an angry bull, Peter let go of his hand, shook his head and said to Thompson, "My man, anger can swallow a person's reason, calm down, we never had to use our fists to talk." From a higher perspective, Peter thought what Thompson was doing was childish and immature. He subconsciously studied the teachers who had taught him in the sanctuary. Those grades are not big, but very mature teachers. However, Peter overlooked one point, that is, he is not one of those teachers, and Thompson is not a guy who can calm down easily. Peter's words were like adding fuel to the fire, making Thompson think that he was satirizing him. Thompson was so angry that he had completely lost his mind, and now he only had one thought, and that was to let Peter, Janios, get this guy to die quickly. So he immediately pulled out a gun from his bag. This gun was a classic Glock that his father bought legally, and he brought it just to show off to his classmates, but he didn't expect it to become his irrational and stupidest killing tool at this moment. But he didn't care anymore, the pistol was already loaded, he pointed the gun at Peter in the terrified eyes of all the students, and shouted, "Go to hell, bastard." He put his finger on the trigger and was about to squeeze hard. However, Peter's originally clear eyes immediately became sharp, and an extremely terrifying aura burst out from his body, pressing towards Thompson overwhelmingly. In an instant, the world was like a purgatory. Thank you guys for your support, thank you so much. Donkey. Chapter 196. The little spider with murderous intent. The overwhelming aura weighed heavily on Thompson. Thompson, who had lost his mind due to anger, immediately woke up. At this time, he froze in place in horror, unable to move. The index finger on the trigger couldn't even press it down. It was as if the body was no longer his own. What scares Thompson the most is that now he is like a flatboat in a sea storm, waiting to be destroyed at any time. That kind of fear, that kind of despair is something he has never felt in his life. The powerlessness almost drove him crazy. He looked at Peter who had changed into another person in horror, and couldn't figure out what happened to Peter, why he could burst out with such unimaginable power, just a look, let himself directly lost combat effectiveness. You, Peter you. Thompson stammered and wanted to say something, but under the panic, his thinking pattern was too messed up and he couldn't organize his words at all. Peter looked at Thompson indifferently. From the very beginning, he thought that Thompson was just a student who bullied the weak by relying on his physique, but just now the other party 807 pulled his gun out of impulsive anger. It's unimaginable. Such a dangerous guy. Let Peter rise to kill for the first time. But this killing intent dissipated later, and the killing intent started with a sharp weapon in his body. The training of the Saints was extremely cruel. Peter had already tried his best to fight against some powerful races on alien planets, fighting with those huge creatures. Kill, not far from Peter. Under the subtle influence of the sanctuary teachings, Peter's concept has already changed. Those heinous villains cannot be sanctioned by the laws of the United States. They can use various means to delay or even reduce their sentences. It's even more dangerous if it's a super criminal with superpowers. If it is not killed, maybe more innocent people will die because of it. So for those guys who are full of crimes, Peter has no mercy in killing them. His heart is still kind, but only for kind people, and for wicked people, only his indifference and fist. Thompson is impulsive jerk, dangerous, hi, Peter is already considering whether to kill this guy. Of course, in this case, he would definitely not do it, but there are many ways. However, Peter's eyes were too frightening, and Thompson couldn't help but shivered when he came into contact with it. For some reason, he always felt that the Peter in front of him seemed to want to kill him, which made his inner fear and uneasiness even higher. Grades. He stammered, Peter, I'm sorry, just now, I was too impulsive just now. Thompson is very conscientious, and now he has only one idea in his mind. That was to apologize, to ask Peter's forgiveness, and he didn't know why he did it, but instinct told him he had to, otherwise, he might die. Peter frowned, glanced at his classmates without leaving a trace, and slowly withdrew his momentum. His eyes turned back to their original clarity, still that harmless nerd. He slowly walked up to Thompson, who quickly put down his gun. Peter didn't care, his eyes just looked at Thompson, although he didn't show any sharpness. Thompson couldn't help but look away, he didn't care at all. Dare to look at it. This performance is enough to prove that he is afraid. This made many students feel incredible. Mary Jane's mood also became complicated. Peter stared at Thompson, and said in a deep voice, impulse and anger are always the triggers that lead people into the abyss. If you ignite him, the few lives that were originally there will change. This is advice, there will be no next time. After speaking, he turned and left. As for Thompson, whether he would be punished for drawing a gun in public, Peter didn't bother to care. He said that he was not joking when he gave Thompson a chance. But only once. There are not so many second times in life. If Thompson has not changed, then Peter may not kill him, but it will make him lose the ability to bully others forever. Thompson froze in place, his expression changing inexplicably. I don't know what to think. The students looked at Thompson, and looked at the back of Peter who had already left, and couldn't help whispering, with excited expressions. They were being stupid at this time, and they also realized that Peter's changes at this time were not limited to his physique. There seems to be some kind of change in character. Cool, did you guys just see that? What Peter looks like? Gosh, he's so cool, did he go to FBI school? He's facing a gun, a loaded gun, and I just saw that Thompson ready to pull the trigger. Speaking of which, that guy Thompson is simply a villain. This villain is actually going to pull the trigger on his classmates. I must call the police. Ha, I have already called the police. I hope the police guys can punish this severely. He actually brought the gun to the school. He should go to jail. I feel that he should not go to jail. After all, he did not pull the trigger and there were no casualties. No matter what, I want that villain to be punished. I don't like to sit in a classroom with a guy who shoots his classmates at any time. That's right. Thompson managed to arouse the disgust of the students. Although he was annoying enough before, it was not enough to make people disgusted to that extent. But now it is different. This guy actually took out his gun and aimed at Peter for some inexplicable reason. Even ready to pull the trigger. This is nothing short of a villain, an unstable ticking time bomb. Ask yourself, no matter who it is, you don't want to go to school with this guy. What if one day Thompson doesn't know who he doesn't like for some reason, and shoots himself? Even Mary Jane, Thompson's girlfriend, couldn't believe it. The boyfriend who made him feel safe at first reminded her of her violent father. The who destroyed his family. Mary Jane's eyes suddenly became different. Chapter 197. Harry Osborn. The loathing in her heart had made up her mind. This boyfriend is no longer available. So Mary Jane stepped past Thompson, who was standing still, and walked towards the school. When she passed him, she didn't even look at her. She also didn't bring up the matter of breaking up. Anyway, in her eyes, Thompson would either go to jail or transfer to another school. Otherwise, he would not be able to stay in this school at all. Thompson's face was ugly, and the remorse in his heart was beyond words. He didn't know why he was so impulsive. He pulled out his pistol in public, and even pulled the trigger out of anger. This would undoubtedly bring him charges, and he would definitely not be able to stay in this school. After the accusation was lifted, he had to transfer schools. Facing those eyes of fear, disgust, and contempt, Thompson could only sigh softly. His future life will be turned upside down, earth-shaking changes. He was originally a star player in the school football team. If he is accused, his football career will be stained and may ruin his football career. This is something he cannot tolerate. All because of Peter. But he was unable to retaliate against the other party. Everything that happened before made Thompson aware of Peter's inexplicable changes. He's already thinking about what he might have gotten since he hasn't seen him in a while. Terrible training, or the awakening of some superpower, but no matter what kind, he can't afford it. After all, the cases of family extermination due to superpowers are not uncommon in New York and Queens Road. No one knew how Thompson was feeling. But the incident at the gate of the school spread throughout the school in just 10 minutes, and Thompson put the things out of his locker, but was approached by 2 New York policemen and took him away. Walk. Obviously, what will greet him will be an investigation by the school and the police station. Once the investigation is established, Thompson will be charged with a series of charges such as carrying a gun to school without a license and attempting to kill someone with a gun. And the school will not hesitate to give up and let him drop out. As for whether Thompson will go to jail in the future, and whether he will be accepted by other schools, that's what Peter cared about. To him, this matter was just a small matter that was not too big. When he came to the classroom, Peter found his seat and sat down, while the other students looked at the familiar but unfamiliar Peter with inexplicable eyes and whispered. Mary Jane was sitting not far behind, and she kept scanning Peter with appraising eyes. She also wanted to know what made Peter change so much. Peter had already felt Mary Jane's gaze, but he didn't care, because at this moment the eyes of the whole classroom were on him. Peter remained calm. He took out his book and watched. Sanctuary did not have corresponding learning requirements for him. But he is still willing to learn, because the Pope's words are the golden rule for him. The real power is not only itself, but also knowledge, which complement each other. This made Peter feel the same way. And compared to the almost brutal training, going to school should not be too comfortable, it is simply relaxing. Swimming immersed in the ocean of knowledge, let Peter get carried away. After school at noon, Peter stood up and walked out of the school. After entering Mary Jane's seat, the latter hesitated to say something, but finally swallowed it back. Under the eyes of a group of pointing students, Peter left the school. Hey, Peter. At this time, a familiar gaze came from behind. Peter turned his head to look, and immediately smiled. Harry, why didn't I see you this morning? The person who came was a handsome boy with short hair. At this time, he just got off a luxury car. There was a middle-aged man with a melodious temperament beside him, and Peter immediately greeted him, Uncle Norman. Wow, Peter, I haven't seen you for a while. You have changed much more than I imagined. When Norman, the head of the Osborn group, saw Peter, he immediately showed surprise. Not this size and temperament. Although it is said that the male Big 18 has changed, but this change is too fast. Harry was also surprised that his best friend suddenly became taller and more handsome. He quickly walked up to Peter, poked the guy's muscular arms in amazement, and enviously said, "Wow, oh, how the did you do it? You look bigger than that Thompson guy." After being surprised, Harry explained, "The plane is delayed, and I just got off the plane." "Okay, Peter, Harry, are you eating with me, or?" At this moment, Norman interrupted the two of them talking. His tone was very gentle, and before Peter said anything, Harry said, "Today I'll go eat with Peter, 0. Okay, next time you come to our house as a guest, Peter." Norman didn't force it, and after saying a word, he got in the car and left. Seeing the hurried appearance, it was obvious that there was something urgent. Peter asked casually, and Harry replied with a smile, "It is said that the company has a project that needs him to deal with." He looks very anxious. Not only was he anxious, but because of the delay of the plane, it almost made Norman mad. But of course Harry wouldn't speak out to disturb the interest. Smiley face. The two walked towards the outside of the school together. Normally, they should go to the school cafeteria, but Harry planned to invite Peter to eat in the cafeteria outside the school, and Peter agreed. The restaurant is a restaurant called Normandy, which specializes in steaks, not to mention how high-end, but the taste is really good. Great value for money. Although Harry is Osborne's young master, he is not such a luxurious and lustful person. The two chatted while eating delicious food at the table. Harry talked about his travel experience during the holidays, while Peter said that he had done scientific and high-intensity fitness exercises during the holidays without changing his expression. This transformed good figure made Harry envious. He said that he wanted Peter to be his fitness trainer and take him to the gym together, but Peter did not refuse. Although he has not yet awakened the small universe, his control over the subtle levels of power is already quite amazing. Chapter 198. Mary Jane who changed her attitude. It can be said that there is no need to touch. Peter can see the detailed structure of Harry's body just from the way he exerts his strength, and he can also conduct effective training specifically for him. It's totally an X-ray machine. But it was precisely because of this that Peter discovered at this time that his best friend seemed to have this genetic defect. This genetic defect will cause Harry's body to be damaged. Might not even live to be 30. This Peter immediately frowned unconsciously, feeling somewhat uncomfortable in his heart. After all, if Harry Osborne's family could cure this genetic defect, they would definitely not wait until now. Obviously modern medical technology means can't treat it. Was he going to watch Harry die? But on second thought, who is Peter? If 807 was in the past, he certainly had no other way, but now he is a backup saint, and when he awakens the small universe, he will awaken countless powerful abilities. It should not be too simple to treat a human genetic defect. If it really comes to a critical moment, he can turn to other saints in the sanctuary for help. Based on his current relationship with the saints, I believe they will be willing to help. After all, those who can become saints are basically kind people. As long as they are not evil people, it is not a big problem to rescue them. After he was relieved, Peter began to chat with Harry. Harry was surprised by Peter's change, but after talking, the slightest sense of strangeness was erased, and the two became laughing. Life on campus is easy. Especially for Peter, the campus feels like a world away after a holiday. He likes such a comfortable campus life, but it doesn't mean he will get used to it. Because, he has already been immersed in the growth visible to the naked eye. The joy of increasing strength is much more comfortable than any kind of love. What is falling in love? What is secretly in love with the goddess? Where is the joy of practice? He is still counting on running towards the sea of stars. As everyone knows, the calmer and more mature Peter is, the more ambiguous he appears to be. Eyes, after all, that kind of temperament is so attractive to girls. At the end of the day, Peter is like a big star, and he has been confessed to dating by many bold and cheerful girls. Peter had no choice but to refuse. Even his good friend Harry seemed a little envious. After all, he was the most popular person before the two brothers, but suddenly he changed. He was ignored like yesterday. Who could bear the gap? Fortunately, Harry and Peter have a good relationship, otherwise, the two would have to be friends just because of this gap. After school, Peter and Harry smiled goodbye, while Peter waited for the arrival of the bus, wearing a white t-shirt, with a school bag hanging on his left shoulder. His refreshing and healthy tall figure made him the most beautiful guy on the street. Peter ignored those gazes. He took out his mobile phone and checked some news on social software. And it was the headlines of the New York Times. In the early hours of yesterday, there was an explosion on the streets of Hell's Kitchen. According to the police investigation, 33 people have died, 45 people are still being rescued in the intensive care unit, and the rest are 320 people with emotional intelligence. It seems that there are two parties fighting, and the scene is very hot. The combination of words and somewhat vague patterns made this matter immediately attract the attention of many people. After all, this matter is not only related to the frightening Hell's Kitchen, but also seems to be related to superpowers and mutants. The status of mutants has been changed now, but this stereotype will not be reversed in a short while, especially for the proud New Yorkers. The kind of contempt in their bones is not a joke. For many elite white-collar workers in New York, mutants are like sewer rats, feared and hated. They're afraid of the mutants making them less safe. As a result, there were a lot of obscenities in the comments below, and Peter couldn't help frowning. After shaking his head slightly, he was about to continue reading other news. However, at this moment, a figure with a slight scent of perfume came beside him. There was also a familiar soft voice. "Hi, Peter." Peter looked up in surprise. It turned out to be Mary Jane. At this time, Mary Jane was staring at him with her head slightly tilted, as if she wanted to see a flower on his face. At this time, Peter was not nervous, but replied with a smile, "Hi, Mary Jane. Today you impress me, Peter, you look changed a lot." Mary Jane looked deeply at Peter and said softly, "You know, it doesn't take much time for a man to mature." Peter shrugged. Mary Jane suddenly laughed, and then said with a smile on her face, "It seems that you have indeed changed a lot. You used to never tell me such nasty jokes." Peter was a little confused by Mary Jane's words. When did he say nasty jokes? However, Mary Jane didn't seem to pursue too much, but continued, I broke up with Thompson. Wow, it looks like you are not very sad. Peter raised an eyebrow. Mary Jane shook her head, and she didn't seem to have any emotional changes due to losing her boyfriend. Instead, she said as a matter of course, after such a long time together, he seems to be getting more and more manic and conceited because of his fame. I don't think so. I like how he is, he reminds me of my father at home. Peter nodded silently. He knew that Mary Jane had a father who was a drunk and a gambler. The most important thing was 5.0. The other party seemed to like to do things. Mary Jane, who grew up in such a living environment, certainly doesn't particularly like people who like to bully other people. In the past, Mary Jane had some vanity, and the other party could give her a sense of security, so she could bear it. But as Thompson became more and more famous in the football team, he became more and more volatile, and the farce of the start of school today completely made Mary Jane decide to break up. But this is also a good thing, and said with a smile, Congratulations, Mary Jane, he is not very suitable for you. Thank you, are you free today? Go for a walk with me. Hungry Peter didn't expect the other party to invite him suddenly, and he was a little stunned even when he was mature. Chapter 199. Mary Jane and the Spider. Peter accepts Mary Jane's invitation. Came to Queensboro Park. Queens Park is one of the most beautiful gardens in New York. In the park, evergreen pines and cypresses, willows that have just sprouted buds, and small trees that have just sprouted buds form a beautiful green landscape in the park. People take off their heavy cotton padded jackets and come to the park to enjoy the spring, see the beautiful scenery brought by spring to the park, and feel the comfort of spring. In the scorching summer, clusters of crystal wisterias bloom in the corridors of Quihu Park. Countless the wisteria flowers are connected together like a wide waterfall, which makes people feel a little cool under the scorching sun. The beautiful scenery can make people who live in a fast-paced life all year round more willing to stop and stare at the beautiful flowers and plants with their tired eyes. Mary Jane and Peter walked on the avenue, the handsome boy and the beautiful girl. The combination of the two looked so eye-catching. Mary Jane seemed to be in high spirits, bouncing and bouncing as she walked. 16 Mary Jane is just like her appearance, under the gentleness, there is ambition and liveliness outside of life. She longed for that kind of life. As for Peter, he had become mature at this time, and his mature temperament was even enough to make people ignore his immature and youthful appearance. It is said that girls mature earlier than boys. At this time, the two have turned around. Peter, do you know? Every week, when I'm working part-time, I choose to come here when I'm tired, because it will give me a short moment of peace. It's like a brief escape from prison, it's really beautiful. I wish I could graduate soon. Mary Jane was chirping, the meaning in the words was full of unwillingness to live, but the girl's eyes and body movements did not have so many complaints. She's not one to give up on life easily. She believes she can change her life. Peter looked at the girl he had a crush on once, and thought of her difficult life. He frowned slightly, but he still didn't say much. Want to help each other, how to help? The two are just classmates and cannot help her much because it is related to the family. Fortunately, Peter, who had matured and let go, was no longer nervous, he became eloquent, and his mind was quick enough. Like a sea king who knew everything, he began to chat with the girl, talking about things that the girl was interested in. For example, the other party likes drama and wants to become an excellent drama actor. He specifically chatted with girls about topics related to drama. Interested and amiable, hit the mark with one poke, and it really made the girl full of eloquence. I don't know how long we talked. The sky had already dimmed. Seeing the dimmed night sky, the two of them who had chatted for a long time finally came to their senses. Mary Jane smiled and extended an invitation to Peter. Shall I have something to eat tonight? There is a pizza not far away shop. The pizza made by Uncle Jeff is delicious. I invite you. Okay, Peter didn't refuse. When he was invited by Mary Jane after school, he sent a message to Uncle Ben and Aunt May that he would not go back temporarily, so he didn't have to go back for dinner. The two walked to the pizzeria. The store is not too big, but it is not too small either. It covers an area of about 300 square meters, and the interior decoration is it often has characteristics, a bit similar to pirate elements, with some tomahawk shields or avatars of many Viking pirates hanging on it. Of course, the skulls are all in the Q version, which is a bit similar to the pirate version with childhood elements. Even if a child comes in, he won't feel anything. It's quite special. Uncle Jeff is a middle-aged bald fat man with a well-trimmed beard. Although he has a fat belly, he looks very decorative. Smiley face, the bulging muscles on his arms and his sinister temperament are enough to prove that he must have had what an experience. The chef, who was originally scary, did not drive away the guests. On the contrary, this is a place where many children like to come. Because Uncle Jeff is a man who loves children very much, he always treats children so gently, and sometimes even gives them free toys. Jingle bell. As soon as Mary Jane pulled Peter through the door, the pirate-style wind chimes hanging at the door made a crisp sound. Uncle Jeff. As soon as she entered, Mary Jane said something to Uncle Jeff who was chatting with the children at the cash register. After Uncle Jeff gave the free toy to the 7 or 8-year-old boy, he looked at Mary Jane and Peter, especially seeing the look of surprise in the latter's eyes. Hi, Mary Jane, what do you want to eat today? I'm going to have a durian pizza, how about you, Peter? Give me something that tastes like bacon. Jeff nodded, and shouted in the direction of the kitchen behind him, John, here is an 18-inch durian pizza and bacon pizza. Understood. A thick man's voice came from the other side of the kitchen. After doing all this, Jeff looked at Mary Jane and 807 Peter, and said meaningfully, Congratulations on finding your own happiness, Mary Jane. Thank you. I don't know if Mary Jane understood, but she just thanked her gently with a smile. Peter's eyes moved and he didn't speak. Uncle Jeff put his hands on the table and said bluntly, Little Mary, why didn't that arrogant fool come? Thompson. Mary Jane was a little surprised. When she brought Thompson to the store for dinner, she never saw that Uncle Jeff didn't want to see him. Jeff scoffed and cursed, if it wasn't for your sake, I would have beaten that guy up a long time ago, just for that conceited little bastard, an idiot with no IQ at all. Although Mary Jane didn't know what happened between the two of them, she didn't choose to ask. The current Thompson is just a past tense for her. She shook her head and said, I broke up with Thompson. Wow, that's great, I'm treating you today. Jeff laughed happily when he heard this, and after calling Peter and Mary Jane to their seats, he turned his head and went into the kitchen. Uncle Jeff's temper is really straightforward. Peter smiled. Chapter 200. Mysterious Metal Shards Evening. Peter was writing something on the desk in his room. After finishing writing, he put down the pen, then turned his head and glanced at the neatly arranged spider suits by the window. He walked to the window, picked up the hood on the spider suit, and stared at the abyss black spider glasses. This is the spider suit he made himself. At that time, when he put on the spider battle suit and shuttled through the steel forest, the pride and excitement almost made him speechless. But now, the original excitement is gone. Peter, who has already opened his horizons and patterns, is no longer as immature as he used to be in his views on many things. But the corners of his mouth curled up a little. In a minute. At the tip of a building signal tower on Queens Boulevard, New York, Peter wearing a red spider tight suit stands tall. The wind blows through, cooling the originally hot air in New York. Peter looked down at the city where he had lived for more than 10 years. I don't know how many times my senses have been strengthened, and I am constantly receiving information from every corner of the streets of New York. Hey, baby, miss me? Today I have 2 drama and movie tickets, do you want to go and see? Damn bastard, don't let that stupid dog of yours on my lawn, which I just cleaned this morning. John, have you heard? Boss, the guys from the Black Dog Gang killed Jesse, should we? Hey Wilson. Small whispers gathered into a torrent of data and poured into Peter's mind. Fortunately, the continuous evolution of life levels has already developed his brain to an unimaginable level. The huge amount of data that ordinary humans can't bear at all can be filtered, processed, and analyzed in his brain center in an instant to get all the information he wants. When he noticed one of the messages, Peter turned his head slightly and looked in one of the directions, muttering to himself. Oh. Looks like it's been fun again. I saw Peter with one arm, and his figure leaned forward slightly, like a bird with broken wings, falling towards the ground. However, before he fell for a long time, he saw Peter stepping hard against the wall with his legs. The whole person suddenly shot forward like an arrow. The terrifying speed even caused a roaring sound. Noisy voices came from a brightly lit factory in Hell's Kitchen. I saw many people walking back and forth in Yoda's factory. These densely packed people wore all kinds of clothes, but their temperament was extremely tough. There were 2 groups of people, and after a while, the noise disappeared, and 2 groups of people were seen standing on both sides. The people lined up neatly and silently, their waists and armpits were bulging, obviously equipped with weapons. There is a metal stand table between the leaders on either side. There are several black boxes on it. 5 of the briefcases had been opened and filled with dollar bills. This is $5 million, what I want. One of them was holding a cane, a jade ring in his hand, and a cigar in his mouth. The fat, burly, and vicious man spoke with a deep voice. Generally speaking, not to mention ordinary people, even vicious criminals would be afraid if they faced him. Because, he is the most ferocious leader among all criminals, the emperor who rules the underground underworld in New York, Kingpin, Fisk Wilson. But the person on the other side was not afraid. The leader was a handsome middle-aged man with a gentle and tall figure and a stern demeanor. He put the briefcase in his hand on the table, and after operating on the code form, the briefcase opened. Inside was a piece of metal. 1 piece of silver and 1 piece of bronze shards exuded wisps of mysterious light, and there seemed to be an extremely terrifying aura vaguely. Once you look directly at them for a long time, you will feel physical and mental discomfort. However, Jin didn't take that much into account. He held a half-smoked cigar in one hand, his eyes were wide open, full of anticipation, he tremblingly stretched out his hand to touch it, but seemed to be afraid that some terrible power in the metal fragment would hurt him, so he retracted, it is it, it must be it. How did you get them? Believe me, we have spent a lot of energy. You are not the only ones who want to get them. Those big shots are crazy in order to crack its secret. The man's eyes flickered slightly, and his originally calm tone fluctuated a bit. Obviously, the previous experience made them a lot of trouble. Jinping naturally knew that the man was not lying, he smiled and said softly. According to our agreement, the follow-up money has been transferred to the account number you provided. The amount of money is so huge that it hurts even to spend it. But he doesn't care at all, money is nothing, if he can really decipher the secrets in the metal fragments, he is very likely to control a path to godhood. So what if there is a risk? He doesn't care at all. Even if it was death, he didn't care, because it gave Jinping a new hope, a chance to make up for the regret that he had regretted all his life. The man stopped talking nonsense and snapped his fingers. A few people behind him closed the $5 million briefcase from the table and held it in their hands. This money is part of the reward for rewarding them, and the rest will be credited to their account. Apparently they got rich, of the money, since the transaction is completed, I should leave too. The man turned around and prepared to leave with his men. However, after taking 2 steps, his footsteps suddenly stopped, and then he turned his head to look at Jinping, his eyes seemed to have changed a little. Be sharp. He didn't speak, but Jinping knew what the man meant. He said in a deep voice, it's a bunch of stocks who think they are superheroes. I don't have much time. The man nodded his expensive watch on his left wrist, indicating that he was running out of time. Jinping nodded, turned his head and squinted at a young man behind him. The latter grinned, and saw him suddenly raise his arm and wave it towards an empty corner of the factory. Boom! I saw a terrifying flame turning into a sea of flames and rushing towards the corner, roaring and raging. Thank you guys for your support, trash.